And ace-8 suited. Queen Jack for Forrest.
Well, Christie flops a flush, but Ted has flopped a higher flush draw. So I'm going to call her $2,000. It's like $2,500. 9,200 spot.
Clubs.
Christie continues with a $9,000 bet. That's about a pot-sized bet. And that might be enough to lose Ted. Yeah, Ted folds his hand wisely. First pot goes to Christie.
Very good pot.
Oh, don't do the wave. No.
18,200 in that pot. Before we go any further, let's talk a little bit, Howard, about this is our second hand. Remember, the chip count carries over from this morning's competition.
Sounds nice.
Yep, and as we said earlier, John D'Agostino on the short stack, definitely looking for his first playable hand to play aggressively. We Phil Gordon on the button. Three high, he's going to lay it down. We're down to the blinds now. Christie with a 7-4 of hearts. He's going to limp in. John has not looked at his cards until just now.
Queen Jack.
Yeah, it's not a bad starting hand, and he's just in the blinds with, so he's actually got position from the big blind. This is not bad for the short stack.
I looked at him like 4 times already. In fact, I checked. Okay.
Choose 4 king on the flop.
Checked and allowed Christie to flop the best hand with her fours. See what he does here. John checks it.
22.
Christie bets the best hand. Kings and fours. And John has to get out of the way there.
First 2 hands to Christie Gazes.
Thank you.
Button here. John's in the small blind. Comes first stack. Opens the action with king, queen. Oh, she just called.
Call. Head up.
So Forrest and Gowan in this one.
Ted was in the big blind and just checked.
Check.
Some tentative play here early. Ted senses a weakness. And he may be. Wow. He's picked up this pot. This is an amazing call by Cloney. She has the best hand. She called 4,000 on the turn, and Ted continues to fire 6,000 more. $12,000 pot and
she
it up.
threw it away.
Very nice play, Ted. There, he felt the weakness, even though she called. He felt like another bet. Maybe he felt like she made a 5 on the turn, and another bet would pick it up, and he was right. Put in another blind so he could be a little bit patient. He has position. Cloney and Ted are the blinds.
Raise. 36.
Now we see here Phil decides to play the king-queen a little differently than Cloney. He is opening for a raise, and judging by the cards out against him, he's probably going to pick up the blinds here. Here shows how good solid aggression with a solid hand
All right.
Picks up the blinds and antes. You don't give your opponent a chance to bluff at you later if you miss.
Yes, I am. Thank you, Matt.
First position here is Phil Gordon. Daniel Negreanu.
12-3.
All in.
Well, there's John D'Agostino.
Aye, aye, aye.
Well, he's picked up kind of a middling hand here, but he's desperate to pick up some blinds. He's just hoping he doesn't get called, and it looks like he will pick up the blinds. Yeah.
And he'll take it, so he manages to get through to at least another hand. Didn't make a whole lot of money, but he lives to play another day. Nobody.
We saw him on his first televised final table. This is his 4th televised final table. He's only 22. Obviously has a very bright future in this game, a tremendously talented player. Christie's limping in with a small pocket pair of sixes. This is probably the kind of hand D'Agostino might push with.
15-1.
Oh, there it is.
It's going to be a tough call for Christie with a small pair. But given his short stack, this is the kind of situation where a small pair may look you up, and he may be in a race here. Well, Phil picked up a pair of 9s, so he's definitely calling the race.
I was going to do that if you didn't.
Uh-oh.
But this isn't too bad with the king-queen to actually get in a race. He's not up against ace-king or ace-king or even an ace-jack. He's about a 50-50.
You got 2 6s?
Yeah.
That's very fair.
Very fair. It's very fair.
You had a 9?
19.
Oh, well, that's fair, too.
That about makes it 50-50, right?
That's a good.
That hurts
good.
you know.
Yep, John, you're right. You're
hurts like
49%.
It hurts him way more.
Now the
Like
flop.
at least 5% more.
Yeah.
I'll bet you that. We could bet that for 20,000.
That's for sure.
Low ball.
Oh, that looked like a paint, the first card.
Where's my 6?
Oh, very
I had 2
close.
6s.
Ace-jack 6, and there's the 6.
Yeah.
Christie would have flopped the set, and she might very well
I
have
like
called
my
if
chances.
Phil
Nine.
hadn't
That
called.
Actually hit me too.
But John still has a pretty good chance to win this pot. A king, a queen, or a 10, and there's the 10. The hand is now over. John D'Agostino, ace high straight. He's going to win the hand and double up. His early strategy is working out. This is what he wanted to do. He needed the early double up.
Boy, and he got it. And I remember the last time we saw him, dating back a year to Springstone, back in upstate New York. Very similar a couple of times.
What are you going to do?
Yeah, well, you know, I mean, to win these poker tournaments, you are going to need to win a few of these 50-50s. He knew it going in. He was just happy to be in a 50-50 race when he had like king queen. He won the hand, and he's got over 30,000 in chips. He can actually play some poker now, as he said.
You don't know you do bust
earlier.
Yeah,
And you don't want to be the first out, too. No money.
Yeah, but this is the first time I think on TV we've had a no money 6th place pole position on TV. But actually, you know, the difference between 6th and 5th is the same as 5th and 4th. So there's something emotional about getting 0 back, but really,
He's hiding. That's not
it's not
fair.
much difference. But you know, like moving up each spot isn't that big a deal until you get to 2nd and 1st.
Daniel Negreanu has been an observer for the most part. Still will.
Too late to make a play.
World record for him.
Daniel throwing away the queen 8. That's the kind of hand he may have looked to play. Ted playing very aggressively here early. He's already bluffed the pot from cloning down. He just opened the pot with a king deuce. Not a very strong hand, but I think he feels that the other players may be playing tentatively here early. He's going to take. And we've got Christie and John in the blinds. Ted will be first to act. The button's on Phil Gordon. A couple of folds to Daniel. This is probably a spot where Daniel may open any 2 cards right now. No, he throws away as a 9-4. Gordon throwing away the jack-8 on the button. That's a little tight, but it was a good play. As you can see, D'Agostino would have probably re-raised for the big blind ace-queen. Expecting a raise here and probably a win of the pot from D'Agostino.
35 more.
3,500 more.
Yeah.
As you said.
Pick it up. Things are going well for D'Agostino here early. He's probably built his chips up to 55,000. Still may be the short stack, but in much better shape than he started.
no.
That's right.
No, that's right. That's right.
All right.
That's right. I wouldn't play
So
that.
they shuffle
if it
over
wasn't
there?
for that.
That is super
Ted will now
cool.
be the big blind.
Come on, big guys.
Cloney will be first stack.
You're big, Ted.
It's a pretty solid hand for D'Agostino.
Yeah.
He just limps in though. Ted checks.
Six ace.
Check, check.
Check, check. On the 4th Street, this is one of these pots. You have to see who wants this pot.
Three. Now let's see.
4,000.
And Ted says that he wants the pot. You notice here John has the best hand. I can't see how he can call. No.
Queen high?
And Ted
You got
now
queen
bluffs
high?
his second
That's pretty
pot in
sick.
about 1 round.
Another one from the ground. I
Ted
got
really
it.
has
Queen
taken
high.
control of this table.
Started
And
to
he's
set
not
it.
the big.
Early, and he is the front runner. You can't win the race if you don't take the lead.
You know, and I think one thing that can't be overemphasized, and that is that psychological advantage to being the chip leader at the table. The fact that whenever you play a pot, you cannot be the one that leaves that table at the end of the hand. That just gives you a tremendous sort of a relaxed state. You know that it can't be you that gets sent home, and you can just make kind of plays that you can't make when you're on a short stack. So his choices in a hand are much wider than John D'Agostino, who's on the short stack.
And D'Agostino wins this hand. Not a big one, but he'll take it. Thank you very much.
Excuse me, guys.
Can't slip in there.
2 red-eye
That was
flights
an
in
editorial
1
statement
day.
from Daniel Negrado, who's been yawning quite a lot.
I don't know.
1 red-eye and 1 late guy.
Well, we did start this tournament very early today, at least by poker standards,
the whip
and
comes out.
some of these guys might be feeling it by now.
Go through a 9-8.
Oh, D'Agostino with a big hand, 2 kings. We'll have to see if Gowan or Negrano wakes up with a hand. So far, it looks like he's going to steal the blinds. Yeah, Cloney had the 7-6. Well, that's one of those hands. You're happy to take the blinds, but it would feel a lot sweeter if you won the blinds with something like 10-9 as opposed to 2 kings. You're always looking for action with a hand like a king. It is a lot about timing, and you know that was just a case of bad timing there for John. He picked up the 2 kings. He happens to run into a leader that only has a 10-5 offsuit. Daniel's quite likely there to re-raise with a lot of very marginal hands, but he just didn't catch a break there with the 2 kings, and he's going to need some breaks to win this tournament.
We do have some of these people on heart monitors, and you can see his resting heart rate 72.
Oh, sorry,
Peak
overlay.
199. He's right in the ballpark there, 122.
Yeah,
Not exactly
well,
relaxed.
Yeah, I think those kings got him a little excited there. If we check back in a couple of minutes, it'll probably be lower.
Re-raise. $6,600 straight.
Okay.
Cloney making a strong play here with Jack 10. Ted open the action. Jack 7. Cloney re-raised.
Taking a long look at Cloney.
This is a very aggressive play. She obviously read Ted for having a weak hand opening in what we call the cutoff position, the position right next to the button. And she's sending a message to Ted. Just because she's on the button doesn't mean that he can take her off the button by making a raise there. This is a very, very strong call by Ted. This is actually pretty shocking with the Jack 7.
Something's gonna fly in there.
Huh?
Something's gonna fly in there.
And a 16.
Fly or something. Oh, I do it.
Well, what is Ted's motivation here? What's
Well, you know, I mean, as I said, Cloney is kind of telling Ted, you can't just raise and steal my button from me. But Ted's also saying, you can't re-raise me and just knock me out of the hand. I mean, you know, poker is all about the long run. And I think they're each sending each other a message that they're not going to be pushovers tonight. And, you know, and that's very important at the poker table.
Check.
Sometimes you don't make the exact right play there, but the message you send makes it right down the road. Check by Gowan. Given that she showed such strength before the flop, it's surprising that she's not continuing to bet here.
She's going to win the hand.
Well, she's going to win the hand if Ted doesn't bluff her out here.
True.
Oh, no, he has checked.
Check.
And she checks.
Jack
I
high.
believe
No!
she's assuming that she's going to lose this hand, but she's going to
Are you
win with
kidding me?
Jack 10 high. This is a
Y'all
pretty
are
amazing
playing
hand.
good, as Mike Mattisell would say. Y'all are playing some good poker over here.
Daniel's certainly getting his 2 cents in there. That was a very odd hand. Pot goes to Cloney, $16,200.
I had queen high. If I knew I had him
Don't
that
think she
dominated.
expected it.
No, not at all. She pretty much, once Ted called that re-raise, she assumed he had a very strong hand, and she just wasn't going to invest anymore to try and steal this pot. This is like found money. She was assuming she had given up that pot, and she's stacking up the chips.
The short stacks still hanging around here.
Raise.
Ted continuing to play very aggressively. Jack deuce he raises with.
I really don't know if I've ever folded this many hands in a row, like ever.
I'm not sure Negreanu's
What,
played a hand.
at least
has he?
10.
Yeah, I don't think he has voluntarily put a chip in the pot. He's certainly been in there in his blinds. But and here's Ted picking up the blinds with the Jack deuce. He is not slowing down, even though he lost that last one.
Well, all of a sudden, Ted 4 is starting to make a little bit.
Easier when you can see the whole cards, Barry. So, you know, this should be interesting.
Not you. Oh.
Interesting play. It's been the short stacks, really, that have been winning the money here early in this competition. Remember, the chip count carried over from this morning. We started with 23.
Yep, certainly John has already doubled up and then some. Ted, who was, I believe, in the 5th place position going in, has certainly done some damage. And our chip leader hasn't even played a pot, playing very much the opposite of what we were expecting.
Second. 3,000.
Ted continuing his aggressive play, betting 2nd pair, which is the best hand right now. And this puts Christie in a tough spot. I mean, if Ted does have an ace, he can continue betting this on 4th Street and 5th Street. She's going to get out of the way. I think D'Agostino's going to throw it away. Another pot to Ted.
Yeah, he's playing very solid right now.
Down, the bottom stacks are moving up, and
Fancy to play.
really anyone's game right now.
Okay,
Gazes,
I'll play.
ace king suited, small pair Negreanu.
And Daniel opens up for a small raise. We're going to call him with the ace-5 of clubs. We know that Christie's will be making a pretty large re-raise here on the button.
Don't give her a number. Don't say raise the pot. She might raise less. Let's be fair.
Back around to Daniels. I mean, a tough spot with a small pair like a pair of 6s. Usually you're either in like a 50-50 race situation, like this situation against Christie, or you're a big underdog against a larger pair.
But do you get to that point where he really hasn't been able to play a hand? Now you get a small pair, you say, I'm just going to go for it.
I think he might be getting a little frustrated. Also, you know, there's a reasonable amount of play here after the flop. So if he were to flop a 6, and particularly if it came an ace or a king, he might have won a big pot there. But Daniel does throw his hand away. Gordon has a pretty easy laydown. Chrissy's going to win a nice pot.
I just felt like you were going to hit the flop.
You did?
Mm-hmm. I really did. I just felt like she was going to hit the flop.
Christy gazes.
Or you
who,
wouldn't
won
know
first
how
2
to play
pots
it.
here. Poker phenomenon is a documentary.
And we did just have another example. Our 2 chip leaders moving down, and some of the stacks from below starting to build up again. These chip counts keep getting closer. Daniel limps in with king 10. Coming around to D'Agostino on the button with ace 10. We know he's probably going to at least call. Ted sitting there with a small pair. He limps in himself. Ted limps from the small blind. We're going to have a multi-way pot,
Right.
4-way.
This will be fun.
Yummy, yummy.
Daniel likes to see flops.
I want paper. I should have won paper.
Ace deuce 7.
Wow. Well, Ted has flopped 3 7s. D'Agostino has top pair with a 10 kicker. And being on the short stack, he could be in big trouble here. And these, okay, these pot odds have been updated. Second there, they were showing the wrong odds. He bets 3,500. Ted just calls, playing his hand slow. Well, this is an interesting card. This actually gives John D'Agostino some outs. He was actually drawing dead to make the best hand on 4th Street, but now he has a flush draw. Ted is not going to give him a free card. He's just bet 5,000. John's trying to add it all up. This is a rather confusing play. It's very hard to put Ted on a logical hand here.
Incidentally, those odds that you're watching account for all cards that have been played.
John has just called 5,000.
Didn't get it.
Didn't get his help.
Like,
A lot of choices here for Ted. Probably a lead out. Correct play. Looks like he came about 7,000. That's going to be a very hard hand for D'Agostino to get away from. Particularly with a player like Ted, he could have anything. If he calls here, this will be a big blow to his stack. He calls and he hates it. There it is.
He's right.
7. Yeah, that's a tough hand. He's probably back to about where he started the day. And when you're the short stack, you just can't afford bad luck.
And cost. Forrest is the guy with the hot hand right at the moment, has been.
Daniel in the blinds. Ted has the button. He stacks up that last pot. That was a
It
nice
really
pot. I
bothers me.
believe
I'm
that
in
was
a
the
real
largest
bad
pot of the
spot
evening
right
so
in the
far.
middle like that.
D'Agostino looks like he's still thinking about that.
Yeah, he's probably thinking about how he could have gotten away from it. Don't really see what he could have done differently that hand. Ted raises the button with the jack-6. Another aggressive play. Daniel lays down.
Forrest was talking to us about being a counter puncher. Well, anything but.
Well, I think what he was talking about there, Barry, is how, you know, most top players try not to have too much of a game plan when they go to a table. They're going to sit there and they're going to try and get a feel for the table. And I think Ted is sensing a lot of tentative play, and he's decided, as any good counter puncher will do, he's decided this is a spot where he can be aggressive, at least early, and take advantage of some of this tentative play. And it's certainly working out for him. It certainly helps to flop 3 sevens every once in a while, though, also. We know D'Agostino is going to be opening here with ace-jack suited, and Daniel has ace-queen. Expecting a re-raise from Daniel. This may be a spot where D'Agostino is going to get it all in.
How much you got, sir?
We may see him racing here as a large underdog with a short stack.
Well, he dodged a bullet in a similar situation not long
You didn't
ago.
look it, right? 3.
To about 15.
Yeah. Okay. There's the 3. And
Definitely nothing about D'Agostino's stack is going to scare
Put
him.
9 more in.
Ace queen. If D'Agostino happens to have the ace queen beat, it's not going to hurt Daniel, so he can raise here with no fear. And he's putting D'Agostino in a very tough spot.
I mean, this way you could still see a flop and get away from it if you miss. Right?
What a good guy.
That's so nice of you, Dan.
What friends for?
I believe he raised 9,000, which is just about all of D'Agostino's chips.
By the way, Lori, if you're watching, I can't answer the phone because there's no cell phones allowed in the building. Just so you know. I'm not being rude or anything.
Well, there you are. You can't have cell phones when you're playing poker.
Yes, there are no communication devices allowed in Labette.
Security.
We are, I should
He wants
say,
to
on a
also.
5-minute delay, so that phone is going to ring for a long time.
What's that?
Yes, and Daniel is someone who will very often have a cell phone with him at the table. I've seen him text messaging and stuff like that. He's kind of a multitasker at the table, but without his favorite cell phone with him at the table, he's going to have to focus in on the game here. John is in a tough spot, does not want to call. He can really sense that he's in bad shape here.
And remember, he made a call that he regretted just a while ago, so he may think about this even more.
It's just a tough spot. I don't really see how he can lay it down, but he may. And it would be a really, really good lay down if he could.
Guess I have time for one more fold.
Wow.
You had ace jack. That
Very
was an
nice
awesome
lay
laydown,
down.
buddy.
Yep.
That was awesome.
Daniel, you're right about that.
No, I got the queen.
Probably a bad laydown.
I showed you the queen. What do you think?
You know, Daniel's keeping it a mystery, though. I mean, John D'Agostino may be thinking he had a king-queen or something there. But actually, he has a little more than he started with. It looks like he might even have 25,000.
Okay. Oh, I like it.
Well, nobody looking like a powerhouse here.
Nope, actually, this is a ground skinner, and you love that when you're the big blind. You don't even have to look at your cards, and you get to pick up the hand.
She's quietly played pretty effectively, I think, Annie.
Yeah, she had. She picked up the first.
People are really in the hunt to win this thing now.
You know, and Ted, you can see from those chip counts that Ted has been the most effective. He's moved himself up from 4th place to 2nd.
Small pair here.
It's opening up for a normal raise.
Looks like Daniel's thinking about doing something with that 8-5.
Yes, and we see Phil Gordon there with the ace-queen offsuit. This is probably a spot where we're going to see a re-raise from
This
Phil.
is the kind of hand that you see Daniel call with a lot that a lot of other pros would have just mucked. He likes those suited connectors.
Yes, and he likes to just call with them and see flops. And particularly with a big stack, you can't argue with that strategy.
He's going to raise.
Here's Phil. Looks like he's raising about 15,000.
Too rich for Gazes, too rich for D'Agostino.
Ted's laying down the small pair. I can't see Daniel calling either.
You're right.
And another nice pot for Gordon here. And with that pot, he might be very close to the chip lead also now. Had a lot of good results in championship poker.
And he final table 2 no limit events at the World Series, so we can probably expect some good poker from him because he's in
World
good
Series
form
this year, so
yes.
he is in good form. Yes.
You're listening to the voices of Howard Lederer, Annie Duke. I'm Barry Tompkins. We're at Wynn, Las Vegas. 6 players started, 6 players still there.
Phil has opened with a raise with 8-5 suited. Ted with his favorite hand so far, 2-7. He's going to call and see a flop.
3-4 king on the flop, 2 spades.
Well, it's an interesting flop. Phil Gordon has flopped a flush draw. Ted still has those pair of 7s, and there's only 1 overcard. So
We'll
this
most likely see Ted call here, which he does.
5-1.
16,000 in the pot.
Wow.
Diamonds, how do you like that?
I think that might be Ted's favorite hand now.
And Ted is just going to lead out.
Looks like he makes a small enough bet that Phil might be getting what he thinks is the right price here.
Right, and Phil has picked up a gut shot straight draw. If a 6 were to come, he would have the nut straight, 8 high straight, and he still has his flush draw.
So he has 12 cards to win, but we know Ted has the 7 of spades, so he has 11 cards to win. And he calls.
Not very happy that Ted has taken the lead away from him. Now he kind of knows he has to hit to win this pot.
Good
And he
pot.
misses.
23,400, queen of clubs. So Forrest is sitting pretty.
15,000.
Ted's going to try and value bet here, but we know that Phil's going to have to fold. Unless he does something silly here and tries to get Ted to lay a hand down.
You know, I like Ted's bet on the turn here because he made a small enough bet that Phil really was forced to call if he had a draw, but he still wasn't getting the right mathematical price to call.
We are seeing Phil getting out some raising chips. We know that this would end in disaster. And I called it silly. I mean, of course, we know that it would be silly because there's no way that Ted is going to lay down the 3 7s. But this actually is the kind of play that players will make. And it very often works here on the end. A nice strong raise on the end. We just know that if he does try it here, it's not going to work.
Taking a long look at it, though.
Well, he's trying to figure out what Ted could have where he would check call on the flop and then bet out on the turn in the river. He's trying to figure the hand out.
Well, from
And
long.
he figured it out and folded. Good for Phil. He avoided some huge disaster there.
Yeah, he had 50,000 coming back there.
And he
that would have been 50,000 more in Ted's stack.
I would have to think
lost 50,000 extra chips there on a read where he was kind of right. I mean, Ted didn't have a big hand until he made the 3 7s on 4th Street, but the fact that he didn't raise there, he's still in the tournament with a nice stack. It's all folded around to Ted in the small blind. He's limped in with Queen 6. 20's in the big blind with 10 8 suited.
Deuce 4 Jack on the flop.
No, neither player's
Check
flopped
and
anything. We'll
check.
have to see who's going to go after this pot.
Check.
Still nothing for either player. Check.
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 Check. This is the second time these two have played a check down hand all the way to river with a surprise winner, where
Pass it. Hearts. Pass it.
And the blinds just went up.
We're 13 points in some games.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, so we have one more hand at 6 and 1200, and John D'Agostino still on the short stack looking for any good 2 cards to go all in with at this point.
Should mention Matt Savage is our tournament director. That's the voice you're hearing
This is
in the
Daniel's
background.
favorite hand.
Just so
In
I can
fact,
see his
in the
beady
foreground.
eyes.
Stand back.
Yeah.
Daniel's favorite hand is the 7 suited.
Because I'm going to play with
You
him.
have beady eyes.
He does got beady little eyes. Not little.
And there he goes. He's calling the raise.
Big. You got beautiful eyes.
Ted's on the button, and he is opened, and Daniel has called the raise.
Remember the queen X spades?
Daniel
Queen
has
X spades?
flopped the best hand with
Queen
2
X
sevens.
spades.
Middle pair.
I checked.
This is 10.
He's made 2 picks.
Well,
Pretty
now we
sure.
know why it's his favorite hand.
9,000.
Pick up
Favorite
the pot.
hand. Absolute favorite. Minimum I've ever made with this
That
hand.
must mean 2 pair.
Oh, Daniel
minimum I've ever
Negreanu
made.
has not had a lot of hands to play, but
Right.
the hands played is one.
And he announces to the table that it was his favorite hand there.
And he's 200.
And he showed us why.
Everyone knows information.
So we've just gone up to 8 and 1600,
Oh,
$200 ante.
Yeah, it's 2 pair.
So the blind
all know what he
that
has.
John is really going to have to get his chips in with anything better than an average hand at this point.
Yeah, but I believe he is button right now,
touch
so he
my
does have
cards?
a couple of hands to wait
I'll
before the
help you out,
big blind
buddy.
comes around.
Like you helped me out by exposing that queen.
That's his job.
12-9.
Whoop, John moved in for 12-9 with the king-8 suited.
And he's got aces behind
Yeah,
him
it
from
is.
Ted Forrest.
Unbelievable.
Now that is unlucky. Well, we know he's going to be racing, and it's not going to be much of a race. He's going to really have to catch some cards here to survive. Or he will be our 6th
Now,
place
if
finisher.
Ted flat calls, we'll see what Daniel ends up doing with the ace-queen behind him.
If Ted just calls, which would be a pretty standard play here,
Yes.
because 12 over 12,000 is a large open, and just he's got D'Agostino already all in to his right, and this would be a standard isolation play where Daniel may want to raise Ted out to be able to play
Okay.
heads up against the all-in player.
And if he does, he's not going to like it here. Obviously being
All
a
right.
huge dog to
I'm going
aces.
to call. So.
I am not going to call.
Either going to have
I would say many pros probably would have re-raised and gotten into very
just me
big
and my
trouble
buddy?
here.
Now Daniel needs to hope that a queen or an ace doesn't fall here.
baby blue.
Tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to check in the dark.
Daniel's checking dark.
I'm going to check in the dark.
Okay, without even looking at the flop, Daniel has checked
I
to
want to
Ted.
triple up dealer.
There is no money in the side pot at this point. Very unlikely to see any bluffing here.
That flop is good news for Daniel.
Ted makes a very, very crafty check.
That's,
Oh my God.
That's
Oh, I
disaster
like
for
that.
Daniel Negreanu right there.
What an amazing check that Forrest just made there on that flop, knowing there really wasn't any need to get Daniel out of the pot. Ted just calls with aces full.
Ted is actually playing this hand brilliantly to get maximum out of Daniel here.
Oh my gosh.
6 on the river. That's brutal.
I think that Daniel is checking, thinking that Ted will
You're
bluff
not
here.
seriously thinking of sticking it all in, are you?
I also think that Ted is
I saw him do this on
upset.
TV once
He's
where
pretty
he
sure
had the same hand as
that
the other guy, and then he
sorry,
stuck it all
Daniel is
in.
pretty sure that Ted
Yeah,
has
to
at
get
least an ace. There really wasn't much reason for Ted to call there. But
Beautiful play.
Daniel's assuming that his kicker was good. So he's upset about that 6 falling on the river because that would give Ted a tie if he had a worse ace. But we know that Ted has aces full. We know also Ted doesn't think that Daniel would have to have the case ace here, the last ace in the deck, to be able to call Ted. But also Ted knows that Daniel could have the last 6, which beats Ted. So this is actually a tough spot for Ted to even bet.
I have
And he
it.
checks. An unbelievable hand here.
Really?
Whoa!
This is
What in the world
an
are you doing?
unbelievable escape by
horrible.
Daniel.
Yeah,
That was
that
ridiculous.
6 saved Daniel a lot
Yeah.
of money.
I'm serious. Oh my goodness.
And of course,
In the
John
meantime,
D'Agostino is kind of the afterthought here, and he finishes 6th place. He played very tough today on that short stack and lasted a while. Just couldn't get it going.
went all in and finished 3rd in the hand.
I don't know.
And he
What a
will
hand.
finish 6th, and he will not get any money. All these players put up 20,000 at the beginning of the day, so he did lose 20,000 in this game,
Huh?
along with the other 17 players before him.
Including me.
Annie Duke joins us too. What an interesting hand, the one just before the break.
Well, you know, you really can't ever account for all the things that can happen at a poker table. It's so unusual. You've got John D'Agostino all in. You've got Ted slow playing because there really is no point in betting there, he thinks. And you've got Daniel sitting there with the case ace. But Head is worried that maybe he has a 6 in his hand. Probably unlikely he has a 6 in his hand. It may have been a weak check, but I can really understand it. And, you know, that just goes to show you really can't ever play all the hands there are to play in poker. I mean, that was one of the strangest hands I've ever seen at a poker table.
Ted with a pair, and Christy gazes an ace-king.
Ted is raised with 2 8s, and it's up to Christy Gazes with the ace-king. We're expecting a re-raise here.
This is a classic race.
But only if Ted can call with the 2 8s. And if she makes a big re-raise, this might be a tough spot for Ted. Looks like she's raising $10,000 into only a $7,900 pot.
That last pot put Ted in the chip lead.
And Ted calls the re-raise. He really is not getting pushed around at all tonight in any situation.
Well, he's opening a lot of pots, so he needs to show people that just because you re-raise him doesn't mean you'll win the pot.
It's a great flop for Christy. She's an overwhelming favorite at this point. She's making a big bet, $20,000.
$20,000 no call. Christy Gage wins the pot.
And Ted lays it down. This was not that easy a laydown. Christy could have had a lot of hands here. Ace queen, ace jack. She really didn't have to have such a big hand. That very often will change the chemistry of the game. John D'Agostino, short stack being in the game, changes things now that he's gone with 4 people essentially tied for first, and Cloney not that short. The play will be different.
Just as an example, with John having that short a stack, when he was in the big blind, people had to be careful about what hands they were raising with because he was much more likely to call than the average player.
And certainly the fact that John was all in and short stack last hand totally affected that hand with the 3 6s and the ace on board. So we have 3 people seeing a flop here.
Flop is jack, 8, 7, 2 hearts. First, check, head check.
Now Daniel has flopped an up and down straight draw. He needs a 10 or a 6 to make a straight.
And Ted has middle pair here, so he's most likely going to play.
Yep. Daniel's bet and Ted is called. And if Ted were to make 2 pair with a 10, Daniel would make a straight here.
3 on the turn, so no help to anybody.
Now Christy did throw away a 6, which hurts Daniel here.
And Ted did just check to Daniel. Daniel checks back. Taking his free card, he has a free chance to make a straight. He misses. Ted has the best hand. And here was a nice example of Ted Forrest allowing Daniel to bluff his chips off to him. Daniel didn't fall for it, but Ted really saw no value there in betting. He just checked. That actually was not a passive or scared play. He was actually giving Daniel a chance to bluff at him, realizing Ted did this. That is, that if he had bet, there wasn't much chance that Daniel would be calling with a worse hand.
No, I gave you for your change. One more. Yeah, oops, again.
We haven't heard from Phil in a while. He's raising here to 4,000.
Pretty solid hand in a 5-handed situation. He raised with the king 9 suited. And everyone's folded. He's picked up the antes. Well, that's a nice solid play from a solid player. Phil Gordon is definitely going to hold his own at this table. Ted Forrest has been kind of running over the game, but Phil has a nice chip stack, and he still presents a big threat to Ted.
Annie Duke joins us. Right now, let's get you back to the poker action.
Normally, Daniel has all the anti-chips on the table, so he's been playing a much quieter game than we normally see him play.
Okay.
Daniel check. 3 players in the pot, 1,600 apiece. Flop is jack.
Doesn't hit anyone.
6, 2 hearts. Check,
We'll see who wants to win the pot.
Check around. Ace hits Cloney, and it looks like Cloney almost certainly going to win this pot. I don't see how she could get moved off the hand. Christie's going to take a shot. Cloney's going to certainly at least call. I don't see much point in raising here. She probably either has much the best hand or much the worst hand. No, it looks like she may raise.
It looks like to me like she's, nope, she's just calling.
Okay. Two players.
Cloney wisely checks. Christie's probably going to check back. Yeah. Cloney's going to win a nice small pot here, but everything helps when you're the low chip stack at the table.
Okay.
Keeps her hanging around here.
Take a leaf, please.
Well, John D'Agostino joins us now, and John, a great effort, I think.
Yeah, that's true.
Certainly all four of these players are right in the game, and Cloney Gowan's one double up away from being back in the game. We're getting right to the action. We've got Daniel and Phil in the blinds.
And Ted's aggressive play has really paid off here. He's moved up from fourth place with about 70,000 to 128,000 in first place.
800 and 1,600 on the blinds now. Little pair for gazes.
And she limped in.
And Ted limped behind her with the ace-3. Daniel's calling in the small blind with king-3.
And 10-9 is a beautiful hand to take a flop with.
Particularly with four-way action.
Four players in the box.
And the flop, ace, jack, 9, 2
Jack
hearts.
9, 2 hearts.
Forrest has outflopped that one again. It's a great job. Good. Ted's going to fire away at this, probably picking it up right here. This hand should be over. Just a small little pot to Ted.
As advertised.
Annie, please.
Yeah, Ted clearly definitely wanting to show people that he has a hand every once in a while because they see him playing very aggressively. He wants to make sure that they know he can have a hand.
I was going to do it, and then I changed my mind.
Remember, this tournament started this morning. 23 players starting. Ted Forrest at one point was virtually out of it.
Ted's table for that, and there was a player behind Ted, so I agree that it was not Ted's best call. And within about 4 hands, he was back to chip leader at the table. So no limit hold'em can go just that fast, so you really can't count Cloney out here.
Right, and that shows you never give up. I mean, when he was down to 2,600, probably the average stack out there was like 3,000, and a lot of people will get down to a situation like that, and they kind of stop playing mentally tough, and they kind of just look for some random hand, and they get their chips in, and they're ready to go home. I'm sure Ted never lost hope, and he's fought his way back to the chip lead.
Now, this could be very bad for Christy. Phil Gordon has raised with 2 jacks, and she's got 2 8s behind him.
She's
but
just
she's
calling.
just calling, which is very smart here.
Actually, I believe Ted opened the action, and he just got called by both Phil and Christy. Now, this is an interesting flop where both the jacks and the 8s are still over pairs, and this could get ugly for Christy.
This is a beautiful flop for Phil Gordon.
He has to be liking his hand here.
He's trying to decide here whether to check, which he does, or just go ahead and lead out. Christy's most likely going to bet here. No, it got checked around. Christy checked.
Checked around, and this 9 may save Christy some money here. Phil firing away. Not that Christy isn't probably going to call this bet, but she's not going to get in big trouble with the 9 up there. She may even get away from it for almost nothing. Look at this.
And she folds. That's an amazing play by Christy there.
It's a great laydown. Gordon somehow really playing it well, giving both of these players plenty of rope to hang them.
147 at the end of that hand, interestingly enough.
So basically Phil is someone that knows his own body. He's obviously someone that does react physically when he's bluffing or when he has a good hand, but when he's in a key pressure situation, his heart rate does shoot way up. But he knows it, and he can somehow mask it from his opponents.
Well, with heart rates of 147, I hope we have paramedics standing by. And Cloney's opening with 2 8s again. We've seen a lot of 2 8s recently.
Yeah, and we're coming around to Phil,
who has 2 overcards with the ace-jack. He's most likely going to play here, and he just
he's
calls.
just calling on the button.
People are playing very cautiously here.
Heads up in the pot. 6,000. Phil Gordon.
flop.
It's a very good flop for Cloney.
Expect Cloney to continue betting here, and she probably can't be moved off the hand. This
And
is
she
a
checks.
nice check. If Phil does make a bet here, I'm expecting Cloney to move all in.
And Phil's making a very large bet.
He's betting $25,000 into a $15,000 pot. I don't expect Cloney to do anything here but move in.
I'm all in.
Yep.
Cloney's all in.
Call.
Phil calls.
Yeah,
Phil's got ace jack.
Well, Phil overcommitted himself to the
It's like,
pot. He could have found out the
no,
same
he has
thing with a
nothing.
much
Okay.
smaller bet, I think.
Yep, and he's up to 162. Wow.
You talked about paramedics.
Again, yes, the ambulance is standing by. He needs to get on the treadmill, apparently.
Either that or he needs an ace or a jack on the next two cards to get that heart rate down.
That's right.
You can't beat anything except a bluff.
And that's the problem with Phil overbetting the pot there. If he bets,
That's a bluff.
you know, 5 to 10,000, he's going to find
Nope,
out.
a 4 came on the turn. He's going to need an ace or jack on the river, or else Cloney Gown's going to double up and get right into this game.
And there,
And that's a big blow to Phil Gordon. A big double up for Cloney Gown.
Basically, Cloney and Phil are swapping positions. Cloney was
Yes.
down around the 50,000 mark. Phil was the 100. Now Phil's down to around the 40 to 50,000 mark. I think she played that hand very well. If you think about it, she has a pair of eights, 7-6 deuce on the flop, and she found a way to get all of her chips in with the best hand. If she leads out and makes a bet there, she's probably only going to get played with by a higher pair. So she found a way. If she's up against a higher pair, she check raises all in. She goes broke anyway. She found a way to get it in with the best hand. Very well played hand by Cloney.
Raise.
And against Phil's hand there, if she leads out, she most likely just picks the pot up right there.
Exactly. She wins a much smaller pot if she leads out. Nicely played. She doubled up when she needed to, and she found a way to do it with a hand that was very dicey to play.
Well, things are getting quite interesting.
Well, what we saw there before the break was just a nice professional pickup of the blinds with an ace-jack. Daniel just hanging around waiting for that big hand. Phil up front looks like he's limping in.
With 2
And look at
sevens.
this, a pair of sevens against a pair of queens.
This
Down,
could be
Me,
bad
anybody?
for Phil. We'll see
Yes,
what he
sir.
You
does.
still steaming from the
Down
last
has
hand?
moved
Probably.
up into the pack
In that case, I better check.
near the chip
They
lead.
might do something crazy.
Whoops, well, I guess we missaw her cards.
Yes, she must not have had 2 queens because that would
Check for my buddy.
be unlikely to be folded.
Right, and
How about this flop? Good flop.
Gordon with the best hand with 2 sevens.
One more.
Check, check.
And he still has the best hand. He'll most likely win this pot
Daniel
here.
checks it wisely. And Phil
takes a bet.
actually value betting here. Pretty sure it's the best hand, hoping that Daniel might have a 4 in there and look him up. But he's out. Gordon picks up
Actually,
the pot.
and the way that pot played, he might get Daniel to call with a king as well.
Yeah, you're probably right there too.
Well, Howard, it seems like the chip's just kind of moving around the table. Nobody has really taken this championship by the throat yet.
Well, you know, Ted certainly improved his chip stack nicely, but I mean, everyone is still bunched up enough that everyone's still in this, and that's kind of what you do when you play in poker tournaments. You hang around and you wait for that tournament-winning rush to come your way.
So far, it seems like everybody's had their moment in the sun, but nobody, as we said, has taken clear command. Well, the big orange is out now.
Yeah, well,
Okay, Johnny's
this
gonna
is
check.
funny. Johnny Chan, I don't know if any of you have seen, you should have seen him on TV in the Tournament of Champions, for example, always plays with an orange in front of him. He's done that since the first year he won.
And it's usually a
the World
pretty
Series.
ugly-looking orange, and I think Phil
Yes.
Gordon has found an ugly orange.
Because he pokes it with his fingernails in order to get the smell out, because it used to be very smoky in poker rooms, and he would do that in order to, he would smell it in order to clear his nasal passages, and so it always looked horrible, and he'd keep the same orange through the whole tournament, so it would be picked at by day 4, as you can imagine.
And,
So.
and generally smell worse than a room, I'm sure.
Well, he pulled out the orange. He's thanking the orange for that little bluff there.
He's lucky
The
orange.
10-4.
He used to do it because people would smoke. You know,
As
in
he
the
picks up
poker
a small pot.
And
from
Daniel's
Daniel.
now telling the same story I
There
did.
you are, see that?
And
It would be a little moldy, you know, by the end of the,
Yeah,
the
I'll
tournament.
bet,
It's a little scary to sit next to him. Like something that you find in the back of your fridge. And I think that after he won back-to-back World Series, he probably felt like it was lucky. It worked for him this year. He won his 10th bracelet.
He could afford the whole orchard.
Yeah.
Well, Cloney is open with ace deuce suited, and Daniel's woken up with a big pair of kings.
Now, this is the kind of hand that Daniel very often will just flat call with. When you flat call with a lot of hands like 8-5 suited, as we saw him do earlier, a lot of times you'll see him call with just kings. It looks like he's going to raise here, though.
Yes, but certainly when Daniel calls, it's hard to put him on
And
a
he
hand.
does
Look,
just call.
he did just call.
And because if you're going to call with a lot of weak hands, you need to also call with your strong hands, or else people will know when you re-raise that you have a strong hand, and when you flat call, you have a weak hand. So this gives him a lot of deception here. And this is bad for Daniel.
Yeah.
Cloney is sucked out on him.
Oh,
That's a pretty bad card for Daniel. It's now much less likely that Cloney has an ace, because now we see 2 aces on the board, and with those 2 kings, it might be hard for him to get away from this.
And Cloney would bet a hand like king queen or queen jack here, and that is a hand
Or even
that
a pair of 10s or jacks.
Exactly, and it's a hand that she would have raised with before the flop as well, so it's hard for Daniel to throw this away. Now notice Daniel's heart rate is only 104 compared to
cool.
Phil Gordon. He must be doing some cardio.
Yep, and here he is. He's just calling. There's really not much he can do here. That was a rather unlucky turn card.
Yeah. Now Daniel is a little bit excited. His heart rate is normally 72. Still not needing the paramedics like Phil Gordon.
Cloney checking. This is an interesting spot. This is a spot where Daniel might bet.
He might bet for value, thinking his hand is good because of the range of hands that Cloney could have. 10s, jacks, king, queen jack, for example. And it looks like he's going to value bet it. Looks like about 20,000 here.
Looks like about 18,000.
18,000. Now Cloney's most likely going to flat call here, we would assume. If she raises, there aren't a lot of hands that Daniel can call with that don't beat her, so, and she's just calling here. No, she's counting it out. And she calls. Daniel's not going to like this.
I think Daniel's pretty surprised he's beat there, and I don't blame him. I think he was really expecting to see a strong queen, like a king queen or queen jack.
Oh well.
It's going to make her the chip
Hand
leader.
for Daniel.
Well, stay tuned. We got a lot more full tilt.
Fourth place.
And that's very often the case. I can't tell you the number of times that I've seen the chip leader at a final table go out 9th at a 9-hit table. No limit hold'em, the tides can turn very quickly.
Raise.
Christie raising the button with a 4 high.
Now Ted is definitely going to play this ace jack. He may re-raise or he may flat call. We'll see what he does.
Knowing Ted, I'm guessing he's going to call. Whoop. There he is. Raise. Ted is not a big re-raiser before the flop.
Well, against the button, he's more likely to be doing that, though.
And with a hand like ace jack.
Exactly.
And this hand should be over.
And Christie will fold the 4 deuce for sure.
No call.
With a little smile on her face, thinking, why did I do that?
Well, you know,
Which is something I've said to myself many times.
Yes. She has not seen a lot of cards, and you know, recently. And oftentimes people will take a few more chances when they feel like they're blinding their money off.
How does that work? Ted is short for Bill.
There is a little yawning, a few bags under the eyes. You can't see the bags under her eyes.
We were up so early this morning to play in this thing. You know, poker players, you know, a noon tournament start is annoying, but 8 in the morning, you know, we were all complaining this morning, and there was a lot of tired faces.
Okay.
But that was pretty good. Pretty good.
I would also like to point out another interesting thing here. The 2 big chip stacks, Ted and Cloney has position. This is a nice advantage to Cloney.
I think that that's balanced some by Ted being the much more aggressive and frankly, much more experienced player. He has played in these big situations a lot more than Cloney, who's hasn't been playing big tournament poker for only about 2 years. Ted's been playing, obviously, since the early 90s. So he has the experience edge here.
$2,000 as you fold.
Here, both Daniel and Cloney.
And Daniel bets the best hand, but he thinks he bluffed for sure.
I shouldn't have folded, but I did.
No, I had a
Bluffing
straight
the
draw.
best hand.
I was all
I
over
did
it.
too.
Oh, you
But
did?
it's still nice. If he had checked there, Cloney may have turned around and either
Oh,
hit a
absolutely.
straight
It was a
bet
good
there.
play by Daniel.
I believe Daniel will be in the small blind here.
And Phil
Phil in the
Gordon
big
is in the
blind.
big blind, who's down to about 50,000 now.
He's the short stack. Or maybe Daniel's the short stack. I know the two of them are.
And Christie's limping in for 1,600 with 2 deuces. Cloney has queens, we hope. The last time she had queens,
That's right.
she didn't have it, but it looks like she had it this time.
Okay, that's the call. So now she's reaching for a raise.
Raises 9,000.
Now, if I were Cloney, I would make a smallish raise here, but
Whatever.
She raised
0,000 more.
That's
That's
fine.
okay.
It looks like
Say boom.
oh, she only raised 7, which is a pot size raise, but Christie got away from the deuces, which is a nice play. But actually, I think if she had actually seen Cloney's hand, if she knew that Cloney had 2 queens, she probably would have called there, knowing that she's going to get paid off and possibly a really big pot if she flops a set. If Cloney only has a couple high cards, then she needs to flop that set, and Cloney needs to actually make a pair for her to win a big pot. And Daniel's opening the button with 2 nines.
now Ted has the ace-6 of diamonds here in the big blind, and he'll most likely call, I would assume.
Actually, I think Ted may have limped in already.
Oh, okay. That's what happens when you look away from the screen.
That's all it took. You had to look
Yeah,
at
he
it and
did.
you knew
Ted limped
it was
in.
there.
Daniel raised
No, I
and Ted
didn't have
folded.
Oh, okay.
Blinds, guys.
Whoops.
Well played by Ted to get away from that hand and not get too involved.
He hasn't been involved in the last few minutes, actually.
No, Ted has done what we call he's changed gears. He sees the other players starting to gamble. He's already set up his reputation by playing very aggressively early when he picked up those early pots. And here's a situation. I think Ted's sitting back waiting for some big hands, and he knows that he's probably going to get some action from these other players who think that he's still playing aggressively.
Now Christie has, no, Gordon raised with the 5-4. We'll see what Ted does with Daniel's favorite hand.
How much more? 29. That's a lot.
Nope, Ted lays it down.
It's apparently not his favorite.
Phil Gordon wins the pot.
So Gordon wins the pot by default, 79. You can see that big purple foot back there. That's part of the beast, and that's only his feet. His head is up around my room. I'm on a 36th floor.
Raise, 4th straight.
4,000.
4,000 straight.
You're awesome.
And Gordon has picked up an ace-king.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
And Daniel
Certainly
raised
gonna be
with the
raising.
7-6 suited. As we said, he likes the suited connectors,
Oh, okay.
There's almost certainly to be re-raised by Gordon here.
particularly with him having a short stack. He would be likely to re-raise here.
Raise.
I believe he called a raise. Counting out.
He did.
Out of $20,000. $20. Stack. Looks like he raised about 20,000.
Call. Phil Gordon wins the pot.
And he's going to pick it up.
Not a small amount of change to pick up, 33,400.
Everything's important when you're on the short stack, and
That's right.
you know he's looking for a nice race there with the ace-king, or even running into an ace-queen or ace-jack. But he will be happy to build his chips in any way.
That's got him back up around the 80,000 mark.
Yeah, and certainly we saw Phil Gordon and Daniel Negreanu starting the day as the chip leaders. They are now in 5th and 4th position. There's been a role reversal. We've had Cloney Gash. She started the day in 5th position. She's up in the chip lead. Ted Forrest has battled his way from the 4th position up into 2nd place. So we've seen a lot of reversals here of the chip position.
And just Christy Gazes is just hanging in and staying in the middle of the pack.
Yeah, she started 3rd and she's still 3rd.
Yeah.
Very even hand here. This one is going to come down to how it's played and how it's flopped.
Ted Forrest has flopped top pair here. Daniel has bottom pair with a gut shot straight draw, and Cloney has a gut shot as well with 2 over cards.
This is a...
Now Daniel doesn't want to hit his gut shot here because Cloney will have the better one.
Yeah, except I don't think Cloney will be around to hit her gut shot. Daniel has bet. It's come around to Ted, who certainly will probably at least call. Might raise. This is kind of a tough situation. Ace-9 looks like a very good hand, but if he plays a big pot, he probably has the worst hand. And he's at risk of doubling up Daniel, which is definitely someone that he does not want to double up.
Particularly with Daniel.
He certainly isn't going to fold here, but raising's a rather dangerous play too. Well, he's making a small raise, it looks like.
It looks like he's made it 16,000.
10 more thousand.
Cloney's folding queen high.
So Daniel's almost certain that he has the worst hand, but he has some outs. This might be a situation where he could push all in, get a lot of hands like Ace-9 to lay down. It also might be a spot where he should just lay it down.
Now look how relaxed he is here.
That is amazing.
Yes, he's about at his resting heart rate, and you know we can compare that to what we saw from Phil Gordon earlier. Well, it's going up a little now, but he's incredibly relaxed.
It almost seemed like he was thinking of calling and the heart rate went up, you know, and then when he's thinking of folding, it goes down. Something about being in the pot and knowing you're going to play a big pot. Yep, he laid it down.
Yep.
So 4.
Tournament today is reading other players. He's considered one of the best readers in the game. We saw him with Cloney Gowan earlier when she just had king high, making a bluff on the river against her to pick a pot up with no pair.
He's got a small pair here.
Wait. 5,000 straight.
Making a small raise with the small pair. I would not expect Daniel to fold here.
And Daniel's calling with the queen 10. Phil Gordon folds.
Daniel and Ted Forrest. Daniel's first stack. And the flop.
Great flop for Ted. This is Ted's 3rd set of the day, all with small middling pairs, which is the perfect kind of hand to flop a set with, because you have that high card out there. In case Daniel had a king, he might have lost the big pot. If that had come queen 6-5 or 10-6-5, he probably would have gotten a good chunk of Daniel's stack.
Six top poker players began at the final table of the FullTiltPoker.net Championship from the Wynn Casino in Las Vegas. Over the course of this tournament, you'll see each and every unpredictable hand unfold as 6 superstars under the lights, camera, and action lay it on the line for $500,000. And what a star-studded table we have. Phil Gordon, Cloney Gowan, Ted Forrest, and the all-star cast doesn't stop there. John D'Agostino, Christy Gazes, and Daniel Negreanu. It's high-stakes, high-pressure poker from Las Vegas, Nevada. It's the FullTiltPoker.net Championship from the Wynn Las Vegas Resort. We come to you from the bet at the Wynn Las Vegas. And here's a recap of how we've narrowed the field down to our final table. Earlier in the tournament, 23 of the top poker players in the world sat down to do battle for 6 spots. Marcel Lusk was the first to go out. He was followed by Eric Lindgren. David Gray was eliminated. Then the first woman to exit the tournament, Jennifer Harmon. Soon after that, Chris Ferguson followed Harmon out the door. Lane back-to-back flat was gone within the hour, as was Andy Block. Daniel Negreanu ended poker brat Phil Hellmuth's day. Daniel got a kick out of it. Phil didn't. Barry Greenstein didn't make the cut either. And as time wore on, Eric Seidel, Johnny Chan, Andy Duke, Gus Hansen, and TJ Clouvier all fell victim to the cards. The first player to get knocked out from the final table of 6 was John D'Agostino. He came in with a short stack and was never able to really get anything going. And the man who's really taken control of this table and established himself as a force to be reckoned with is the current chip leader, Ted Forrest. Let's take a quick look at what Ted and the others are playing for. Here's how the prize money will break down. First place, $250,000. Second place, $132,000. Down to fifth place, $33,000. John D'Agostino will come up empty. Let's take a look at the seat assignments. Who's sitting where as we come down now to our final 5 players, all of whom will cash a check. Seat 1 is Ted Forrest. Clooney Gowan is alongside. Daniel Negreanu is in seat 3. Phil Gordon, seat 4. And Christy Gazes is in seat number 5. And there you see it, 1 and 2 with $300 Randy.
That's first, 1 and 2,000.
You see that Ted really isn't putting himself out there as much as he was earlier in the tournament. As these blinds and antes go up, people are going to get a little bit more desperate and be more willing to commit their chips. And so he slowed it down a little bit, waiting for hands.
Right, and really following his game plan, which was to have no game plan except to counterpunch and react to the table. We are seeing Ted do exactly what he planned on doing.
Here's a look at the chip count right now. Ted Forrest still the leader, 145,000. Clooney Gowan now is right there, just 15,000 behind. Christy Gazes at 75,000. Daniel Negreanu at 48,000.
But everyone's still in it, as we've seen. Gowan was the short stack a little while ago. Things changed very quickly in No Limit, and Ted has picked up the blinds. Maintaining his aggression. And staying right there with Clooney, up near the chip lead.
Set one up over there.
We're doing a very good job with it. They are.
Raise. 6,000 straight.
Gordon, a Jack 10 suited.
Clooney is going to call with the 6,000 suited, taking a page from Daniel's book.
4,000.
Yeah, take one back.
Excuse me. 4,000 and still on the top, 4,000 each. Flop is 8 Jack,
Now
3, 2 clubs.
That's an interesting flop. Phil Gordon's flop middle pair, and Clooney's flopped a flush draw. And she's betting right out.
Which putting a lot of pressure on Phil.
A lot of pressure on Phil, who is short stacked here. He's going to have to commit all of his chips, basically.
This is a tough spot on Phil. He's got the best hand as we can see, but if she has an ace, he's in bad shape.
Be Jack Queen or Jack
We know that
King,
she's drawing. And he gets out of the way.
That's a great play by Clooney.
Yeah.
And that's a play she's able to make because she has a larger stack than his. That's how the psychology changes. I think if Phil had the chip lead and Gowan was the short stack, that hand might have played very differently.
Clooney Gowan, as we said, she lives in Dallas, Texas now, but born and raised in Oklahoma. And we mentioned earlier, a former Miss Teen Oklahoma from a little town called Kiowa. You been there?
Definitely not. I think I've only been to Houston
That's
for the Super Bowl a couple of years ago.
Nice try, huh?
Yeah, you only got the Annie and the blind on so bad.
That's all right. I
Went
got
around the
everything else
Gordon.
right there, haven't I?
First position. He's probably still thinking about the last hand. Down to the blinds.
6,000.
And Clooney is raising with the queen high.
Total?
Again, she's
Okey-dokey.
acting like a big stack, putting pressure on Daniel. Daniel calls with king 3. This is a very interesting pot. Daniel has position and the best hand.
Flop is 8, 7, 4, 2, 6.
They both missed.
The first person to bet here is most likely going to win the pot.
Check, check.
Goes check, check.
Turn cards to jack. That's it.
Checks, and Daniel's making a bet, and he's probably not even bluffing here. I mean, where he thinks there's a decent chance his king is good. He just wants to make sure that he doesn't give her a free one there to hit a 6 or a queen. That was well played. He knew he probably had the best hand. Just want to end the pot right there.
And checking on the flop gave him an extra street to get more information from the quality of Cloney's hand to find out if she was just trapping with a big hand, which he's seen her do a couple of times already.
Daniel Negreanu, as mentioned earlier, from Ontario, Canada, born in Toronto. Player of the Year just last year, and a guy who has been around the track.
He was Player of the Year not only on the World Poker Tour, but also at the World Series, which is quite an accomplishment.
And also, according to some databases out there, he's the all-time leading money winner in tournament poker.
Raise 7,000 total.
So he's had quite a run the last few years.
He struck at just the right time. He won a lot of tournaments as poker was getting huge in the prize pools. You know, first place was all of a sudden always over $1 million, which has only happened recently.
We'll be back with more of the FullTiltPoker.net Championship after this. Welcome back to the FullTiltPoker.net Championship. Now let's get you back to the action.
Well, we're looking at Daniel Negreanu there, and I would venture to guess that he's won over $1 million in a poker tournament more than anybody in history.
Oh, almost definitely. And it used to be that the only way you could win $1 million was to win first place in the $10,000 buy-in at the World Series. Now there's a $1 million first place, you know, once a month at least.
And Ted Force has limped in with king 9 suited. Daniel limping in with 8-6. He's coming
Christie's
around to
mostly
Gazes.
going to raise here with ace-queen.
She's a bit short here. Probably going to look to put the action. Yes, she is.
And it looks like she makes it
11.
11.
Now we'll probably end the pot. Nicely done. Well, nicely done. Didn't give him the free flop.
At least once in the tournament.
You stole that one.
One hand.
You probably had the best hand.
And you never mind the hand ending there when you have a hand like ace queen
No.
offsuit. That's just not the kind of hand that's going to play all that well after the flop, particularly in a multi-way pot. You probably have the best hand, but you're just happy to stack those chips up before the flop.
Yeah, really.
Christy Gazes, we mentioned earlier, a documentary filmmaker before she started playing poker. She's played for 12 years, but I think you mentioned earlier, Howard, that she hasn't played professionally for all that time.
Yeah, she has numerous cashes on the World Poker Tour. She's a good player, pretty new to championship poker, but she's had some nice results already.
Raise.
Well, this is going to be a tough spot for Phil Gordon.
It's going to be very
He's
hard.
probably
for
going to
him.
make a big raise. Gazes is not going to go out here. She is probably going to move in, and I don't see how Phil gets away from it. He looks pot committed.
And she moves all in. Daniel will fold his two deuces.
Excuse me. No,
Happy to get out of there with the 2 deuces. Actually, if he saw their cards, he would call it
And
a
you
hard
can't
beat.
fault Phil if he calls here because Christy would do the same thing with
Okay. It's okay.
jacks
It's easy to
or
construct.
10s, and
Absolutely.
he
Pull
could
all
very
that
well
money
be in a
back.
race
We've got
situation.
26
I
here.
don't really see how he can get away from it. He has about half his chips already in the pot. He's getting about 3 to 1.
I'm getting 2 to 1. I got a call.
6 and that's there.
Yeah, he has to call.
I mean, with that much
best
money in the
hand,
pot,
man.
even if she has 2 kings, he's really getting the right price to call. So even if she turned 2 kings over.
Right, she would have to have 2 aces or ace king.
3 to 1.
to have a fold.
Exactly, and she happens to have
I
the
got a
hand he
call.
definitely
Hey,
doesn't
Howard,
want
let
to
her. I got a call. I'm getting 3 to 1 on my money.
see. And in fact, getting 3 to 1, even if she had 2 queens, he would have a call.
Right.
Queen me. Queen me.
He's going to need a queen. No help on the flop. He's pretty much down to a queen. He's going to need a queen on one of the next 2 cards. Let's look at 4th Street. There's a king, and the hand is over. Phil Gordon's going to finish in 4th place, 5th place, excuse me. That's a disappointing result for Phil. He came into the day in second place, just nothing kind of got it going. Picking up a chair, all of the poker brass, Phil Hellmuth.
Yeah, he's doing the Phil Hellmuth imitation. When he was in Las Vegas, so he's being Rich Little, right?
Hey,
and he's gonna take home 33,000.
3 round, guys.
Yeah, the buy-in was 20,000 today. He made a tidy profit, but you're always disappointed when you walk away from a tournament.
Well, at least he can brag about his stay at the Wynn Las Vegas. Hey, let's take a closer look at the Wynn Las Vegas. It's the newest resort on the Strip, just opened this past April. The reviews, of course, absolutely fabulous. First-class accommodations and service, plus top-of-the-line amenities. You can even buy a Ferrari. Howard, I know that's right up your alley. Beautiful setup of suites and villas at the Wynn Las Vegas, and a big congratulations to Steve Wynn and his entire staff on what they've done with this brand-new state-of-the-art layout. The Wynn Las Vegas, pretty special place in a pretty special place. Barry Tompkins, Howard Lederer, Annie Dukes, and alongside Chris Ferguson. We're going to say goodbye to Annie. We're going to be like a hockey team here. We're going to change lines. Annie Dukes is out, Chris Ferguson is in. And Chris, I know it's not the position you want to be in, sitting here talking about all this stuff, but we're going to put you in that role anyway. I know you'd rather be playing, but we welcome you to the microphone anyhow.
I would. Well, thank you very much.
Let's talk about what you've seen so far. 4 players left, really getting down to it now.
Yeah, it is interesting. The big stacks have really been cut down a lot here. So it's the short stacks have really come through, and that's very impressive. It makes for a very exciting tournament.
All right, Annie, thanks very much. I hope you had fun doing this.
I did. I had a blast.
All right, that's Annie Dukes. One final comment from you before we move on here, Howard. What do you see with these final 4?
You know, I think we've already seen the unpredictability. We've got the 2 short stacks. One of them's out. I mean, the 2 big stacks at the beginning of the day. One of them's already out. Daniel's the short stack. The small stacks have gone up. I think we could really see any of these 4 players win from here.
Well, let's take a look at the chip count, and look how close it is amongst the top 3. Ted Forrest just 3,400 ahead of Christy Gazes. Cloney Gowan is right there as well. Daniel Negreanu is going to have to do some serious gambling to catch up.
Well, you know, I think we saw Christy Gazes. She was patient. She basically hung around there in 3rd place all day. She waited for a spot. She picked up the ace-king, and there she is right amongst the leaders.
Well, you've been talking all day long how quickly things can change.
Well, in big bet poker, you can double up or triple up any hand, which means, of course, that Daniel is 1 or 2 hands away from the chip lead himself.
It's like we have 4-way action. Everyone lives in on it.
These are the kinds of pots where people get broke with the right flop.
14 jack.
Wow, this is a complete miss for everybody. Here's a 4-handed pot. Let's see who wants to win it.
No question.
This is probably going to win it right here, and this is a pretty impressive bet from the short stack to be betting into 3 other players with nothing.
Check.
Yeah, and now he's making believe like he had something.
So that's brutal.
He was saying, "Oh, I should have checked it."
Yeah.
Like he had top set or something.
More of the Full Tilt Poker.net Championship right after these messages. We welcome you back. Let's get you right back to the action.
That's what it's all about. You gotta get it.
Chris, talk about how the game changes now. We start with 6 players, now we're down to 4. Different game?
A little bit different game. You're going to have to play a lot more hands 4-handed than you are 6-handed. You just can't wait around for a big hand. You have to play hands.
Yeah, those antes and blinds will eat you up if you're waiting for ace-kings and ace-queens. And that's why on a hand there where Phil Gordon picks up an ace-queen, there's no shame in him going broke short-handed in a tournament situation.
No, absolutely not. He had to play that hand.
9 jack on the flop.
Oh, this is a good flop for Ted. He's flopped the best hand, 2 9s and an up and down straight draw. If Daniel were to stay in this pot and it were to come a queen, though, he could get himself in big trouble here. Ted's got the best hand, but if it comes a queen or a king, he's in really bad shape. 4 of diamonds. That's also a flush draw for Ted.
How many chips do you have?
About 40-something.
Ted checking his chip stack. This is an interesting situation. If Ted were to bet 15,000 here and Daniel were to raise, this doesn't look like the kind of hand that Ted could get away from, given how many redraws he might have against a lot of Daniel's likely holdings. He may check it here.
Ted doesn't have a lot, but he does have a flush draw, an open-end straight draw, and a pair. So he has a lot of little things going for him. Yes. Yeah.
Which get you in trouble sometimes. And he really doesn't want to double Daniel up here with a marginal hand like second pair. But I think he's read the situation properly. He's made a bet. This ought to end the hand here. Yes, it does. Nicely played by Ted. A lot of people would have given Daniel a free card there, and Daniel could have won with any of the 2 offsuit kings, not the king of diamonds, or any of the 3 queens that weren't the queen of diamonds.
Wow. Who wanted to see the river?
I guess they looked at the river.
Did they ask?
I'm not sure what it was, but
yeah, Daniel could have gotten in trouble with that hand also, because he did have an open-handed straight draw, so he did good. Not to lose more with that hand.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
If Daniel hit a 7, he would have gotten a tie that hand. But if he had hit the 7 of diamonds, queen of diamonds, or king of diamonds, he also could have lost quite a bit of money on the last card also.
4,500. Daniel's out.
Ted's raised with ace-9 suited. Chris calls with the queen 10.
He called. Heads up in the top. 4,500.
Great flop for Ted. Probably look for Ted to slow play this. As you remember, the last time he flopped 3 aces, he slow played. Did get some action.
He does just that, and it's going to be hard to get Christie in trouble with just.
Yeah, it would have to come a queen or a 10, and then he might get her for 1 bet.
No, Forrest has a flush draw as well as 3 aces.
He's certainly milking it there, and there it is. Christie has hit her queen. Ted is certainly going to bet here, and Christie's probably going to have to pay it off. Ted's patience has paid off for him here. He's probably going to get about it. He bets 9,000. I can't see Christie folding. This is awfully well done by Ted.
Yeah,
absolutely. He has to call. And right there is 9,000 earned by Ted Forrest that probably wouldn't have been earned by just about any other professional player out there. Nicely done.
Perfect.
He had such a dominant hand that he let her catch up to lose next time.
Yeah, perfect. I'm like queen 10, queen 10. Oh, yeah.
You don't want to give opponents outs to beat you, but you do want to give opponents outs to catch up a little bit. As long as they don't beat you, that's exactly what Ted did.
Flop.
Nope.
Just waited for the river to make.
Yep. Yep. I thought that, but you know.
Yeah, and she, and Christie doesn't feel good about that hand, but there really isn't anything she could do. She just lost to a brilliant play.
That was going through her mind. Even though that's going through her mind, she kind of has to pay it off there.
Right. Well, if you fold every time that you make a queen on the river and someone bets there, you're going to be in big trouble because they'll just steal from you night and day. Daniel's raised. Ted's picked up an ace-9 here in this short-handed situation. This is the kind of hand that you might want to re-raise before the flop. Just end the hand right here. He's not looking to take a flop.
He's probably going to put Daniel all in. I'm not sure what Daniel has that.
Very good chance of it. It does look like he's picking up an all-in raise. Yep, putting him all in. Daniel cannot call with the 8 high. I mean, this has been a virtuoso performance here by Ted Forrest so far tonight. Hardly a chip out of line all night by Ted Forrest.
And he continues now to be a pretty dominant chip leader. So Ted Forrest, for the first time, seems to have this thing a little bit by the throat. We're coming back. We welcome you back to the FullTiltPoker.net Championship. Let's take a look at what these fine poker players are playing for. Phil Gordon has already locked up the $33,000 for 5th place. Remember, John D'Agostino went home empty. First place, $250,000 up for grabs. $132,000 for second, $99,000 for 3rd place. And if you missed it, we had some excitement earlier as Phil Gordon went all in against Christie Gaze's ace-king. And unfortunately for him, came out on the short end. But at least he took it all in stride. He did his best Phil Hellmuth impersonation. Let's take a look right now then where we stand. And here is the chip count up to the moment. Ted Forrest continuing to widen his lead over Cloney Gowan. Christie Gazes has moved up 123,000. Daniel Negreanu now the short stack at 38,700. And Phil Gordon is with us right now, and some days it is, and some days it's not. And Phil, I guess today it just wasn't.
No, today it just wasn't.
Just that simple. But you get some handsome party gifts anyway. You're not going away from here empty-handed.
Hey, you know, 31,000, not bad. Even better is playing against the best players in the world. You know, we started with 23 of the best players in the world, and I somehow managed to wind my way through that field. Johnny Chan, TJ Cloutier, Eric Seidel, Gus Hansen. I mean, you know, playing against those guys is a dream come true, and just making it to the final table is a good accomplishment, I think.
Chris Ferguson has a question for you, Phil.
Go ahead, Chris.
So who do you like to win this event?
Well, it's hard to bet against Ted Forrest right now. I think he really has command of the table. You know, Daniel, if he had more chips, might be a real threat, but I'm going to take Ted.
All right, Phil, thanks very much for being with us. And you underplay yourself. You were saying earlier, I'm not so, I don't know if I should be here. You should be here. You did a great job.
Yeah, Phil, very well done. Outlasted 19 other very, very strong players.
Yeah, the last hand was a little unlucky too, you know.
Thank you, Phil. That's Phil Gordon. He's gone 4 left.
Christie raising the button here with King Jack. Nice solid play. Should pick up the blinds and antes here. We're up to 1 and 2,000 blinds, 300 ante. I think we've seen some nice play from our short stacks today. Christie hung in there very well, sort of in the middle of the pack, and has now moved up. Cloney was a short stack, and she's moved up. Actually, Daniel's being very patient here also. Just waiting for a good spot to get his chips in.
Yeah, we've all seen Daniel make a lot of comebacks in his day, so don't count him out.
I didn't show him, sorry.
He plays well with a big stack, but he knows when he has to gear it back a notch when it's a short stack also. Cloney opening with the ace-9. Again, as the big stack, I don't really see how Daniel can fight back with the 7-4.
You'd have to be pretty inventive here to make a play.
Throws it away. Cloney Gowan.
He's going to wait for a better spot to get his money in.
And he's
2 men, 2 women. That's kind of nice to see, really.
Yeah, it is. The tournament actually started with 4 women out of 24, and women have done incredibly well. They're 2 out of the last 4, so they're really putting it to us.
So they've got a lot more chips than the women collectively started with. They started with 80,000 chips. There was 20,000 chips each. 4 women in the tournament. Cloney has 120 something, and I think Christie does too. So they've turned that 80,000 collectively as 4 women into over 250,000. They're doing quite well, and they've just picked up a nice hand here, and this could get Daniel in trouble.
This is exactly the spot.
Cloney's open with ace-king. If Daniel raises here, he's going to be racing with the worst of it.
Very interesting hand for Daniel. Very dangerous.
Right, but Daniel likes to call in spot. Most professionals won't call. He may just call here and try and hit something. Of course, if he hits an ace, he'll definitely get broke. But he might catch a 7 or some clubs.
I'm all in.
Yeah, he's all in, and he will be racing against the ace-king. I really don't think there was much he could do here. It's a short table situation. He's short stacked, ace-7 suited.
I knew you had something. I just knew she had something, and I said I couldn't throw it away. It's like I couldn't call. That was just this exact spot I didn't want to be in. Just raised
Daniel felt it, but the hand was just too strong to get away from it. We see he's 30% here. 70% of the time, he is going to finish 4th.
You know, a lot of people think the ace with the undercard has no chance of winning, but it has actually a pretty good chance, 30%.
Particularly suited.
That's a bad.
And there's the king on the flop. He's going to need running clubs. He's in very bad shape here, probably down to about 5%. Oh, there, 4%.
Didn't get it.
And it's not a club. Daniel Negreanu is going to finish 4th place.
Well, they came in with the big stack, and he leaves when there are 3 remaining.
Just wasn't much Daniel could do. He really ran into some tough spots, and you know, came in the chip leader. But if you just don't really win your fair share of pots, that stack is going to start to whittle down.
Yep.
And we saw him on the short stack. He had to move in.
Christie Gaze is saying, "Girl power, baby."
Ante up, guys.
Yeah, let's hear it for the ladies. More from the Wynn Las Vegas right after this. We welcome you back to Las Vegas. Let's get you right back to the action. Well, the table now down to Christie Gazes, Cloney Gowan, and Ted Forrest. I'm sure the ladies are hoping to make it an all-female affair. Well, Cloney Gowan talked to us about the fact that 2 women at the table, and she likes it. Thank you very much.
We're good poker players, and we're here to play the game, and definitely get in this, play the same mind games that the guys do, and we find that very challenging, and it feels very good. So I'm not surprised at all that 2 women made the final table. Probably would have expected maybe Annie and Jennifer, but because they have such great records. But Christy and I both are very capable of winning this thing, for sure.
Spoken like a true poker player, very confident.
Hey, look, this is a great result for both of them. No matter what happens from here, they're showing that they're very good players. And one of the things that I think really makes poker such a popular sport is how fair it is to all sexes, races, ages. This is a game that anyone can excel at.
Ma'am, you can leave that one.
I think it's always been thought of as a man's game, but we're seeing a lot more women get involved with this game, and I think with this showing of the women today, I think we'll see a lot more to follow.
Well, we were talking, Howard and I were actually talking, Chris, about the appeal of this game. I think is in large part because of the broad-based fan base you have.
Oh, I agree.
It covers everything, just as Howard just said. It crosses age lines, it crosses sex lines, it crosses economic lines, it crosses geographic lines. I mean, virtually everything.
Yeah, but one wonderful thing about this game is you can play it for the rest of your life.
That's true. That's true. You don't have to worry about your knees.
And I think whoever you are or whatever walk of life you come from, you can see yourself doing that on TV someday if you can turn yourself into a professional quality player. And there are so many things on TV where you're not going to be a huge movie star. You're not going to be a huge basketball star. It's just too late. You're in your 30s or 40s or whatever, or you're too short, or you don't have like Tom Cruise's great looks or whatever it is. You're just barred from doing certain things that you see on TV. Poker, there's no barrier. If you're good enough, you can end up on TV playing that game too.
You're killing me here. I covered all those bases. Too short.
Very.
And yet you're still on TV all the time, and you're one of the best.
Unbelievable.
Jack high.
That's about the 3rd or 4th hand at this final table that Ted and Cloney have played against each other, and they're really not taking a lot of aggressive action. A lot of checking between these two so far.
Well, joining us now for a quick interview is Daniel Negreanu. Danny, you kind of wrote your own epitaph. You said, this is exactly the situation I don't want to be in, and you got in it and just finished second best.
It was such a tough situation because she just raised the hand before and had to be feeling good about that. And then to come back and raise again on the button, I sensed she was really strong. Problem? So was I. In a short-handed situation, short on chips, with a hand that good. I wanted to just call, but it was too much of a percentage of my chips, so it was like, oh man, this really sucks. But I got to go broke here. I really didn't want to, and if I was going with my first instinct, maybe I would have just folded. I don't know.
Daniel, after you doubled up Cloney, you went from being the chip leader to kind of short stack. Can you talk about how you kind of had to change your psychology, kind of change your game plan after that happened?
Well, the one key thing that I was no longer able to do is set up traps for people, risking limping as much. So I had to start raising before the flop a little more to try to get involved in stealing antes, where as the chip leader, I wasn't preoccupied with any of that. I was just looking to knock people off, with the nuts if I ever got it. But when I got the nuts with 2 kings once, it didn't work out so well.
All right, Daniel, thanks very much. One of the great players, Daniel Negreanu. Thanks for being with us, and great job just to get this far. We'll be back with more of the FullTiltPoker.net Championship after this. We welcome you back to the Wynn Las Vegas, and another balmy day outside, about 113 degrees. Nice to be inside. And we are inside at the FullTiltPoker.net Championship. Well, let's take a moment and update you on the current chip count, and it's very close. Money being spread around the table with our final 3. 170,000 for Ted Forrest. Cloney Gowan is right there, 7,000 chips behind. And Christy Gazes is very much in striking range.
Yeah, and you can see that Christy Gazes, with one double up, takes the lead and cripples one of these players. So really, any player here can win this very easily. One thing you may notice here, blinds have just gone up to 12 and 2,400. will force aggression here. We do have a couple of good hands. Ted Forrest with 2 8s. Christy Gaze's ace-9 suited. We're down to 3-handed. These are both very strong hands in a 3-handed situation.
We really are seeing a lot of big hands for these short-handed games. So gonna have a lot of action on this one.
No, she just calls.
6,500 feet.
Flop 4, 6, 10.
Good flop for Ted. There is one overcard, but he will probably bet here.
He's going to want to protect his 8s. He thinks that they're the best hand, and he's right.
9,000.
Yep, and he does pick it up. And that was actually well avoided by Christy Gaze. She could have gotten in trouble with a hand like ace-9 suited.
Christy Gazes was talking to us about the fact that she doesn't have the kind of experience that a player like Ted Forrest has. And she's just got to get in here and learn on the job.
My biggest problem in No Limit Hold'em is in tournaments is not taking my time. I'm a limit player. I'm from California. I play really fast, and you know, that's my biggest problem, is not taking my time. So again, like, not, you know, an advantage, no way. I mean, these are all great players. They know exactly what you're doing, and you know, hopefully you can sort of mix it up. And you know, I think with this structure, it's going up pretty fast. I heard that you have to gamble a lot more. So either you're out quickly or you got a lot of chips.
Well, she's got a lot of chips. She's hanging around here. 3 players remaining in this one. Actually, and I don't know nearly obviously what you guys do, but she looked a little nervous on that last hand to me.
Well, she certainly played the hand tentatively. I think a lot of professionals would have re-raised, but I think they would have gotten in trouble. I think she ended up playing the hand well, and she got a good result. She lost a small. There's certainly no way she was going to fold before the flop, and she basically lost the minimum.
Coney Gowan brought it in for looks like around 10,000. I'm not sure exactly how much, and Forrest bonds up pocket 5s in the big blind.
Lays them down.
Wow, that's unbelievable.
Hey.
That's hard for me to believe that Forrest.
Well, she made a big raise, and
400.
didn't look like he was looking again. What's possible that we missaw his all cards?
400.
So we're not really 100% sure there. Sometimes we do not see them correctly.
You weren't all paired up, were you?
Well, he is asking her about a pair.
I'll see after the tournament's over.
Yeah, just asked her. You weren't all paired up there, so it sounds like we did see those cards correctly. That is a very interesting play. You know, Ted's a very unorthodox player. He has not actually played a ton of No Limit Hold'em. He's not as experienced as a guy like Daniel Negreanu, for example, or Johnny Chan.
See, you may get it back right
but,
here.
He has some of the best instincts.
Yeah, he is one of the best poker players around, and he's obviously turned his attention to No Limit Hold'em, but he will make some very unorthodox plays, and that might be an example right there.
Gowan's going to play her 7
Usually he's
suited.
Usually he's right about these plays.
Ted raises with ace-9 suited, and Cloney calls. And these are some cards here. There are some flops here that could be interesting, and we can see a big pot.
Would you have called 7?
Probably not.
Yes.
I could call 6, but I can't call 7.
Flop is Jack 8-3, 2 flop. Ted first.
Jack 8-3.
So Ted has the best hand with ace-9, but Cloney has a gut shot. It's gone check. We've seen a lot of checking between these two tonight so far.
Queen on the turn.
Check.
Last card. 7.
Cloney has drawn out. She's made 2 7s.
Ted allowed himself to get drawn out on it.
And he checks, and she is betting. Pretty certain that she has best hand. Now Ted has ace high.
That's an interesting bet there.
And that's a pretty large bet that may be suspicious to Ted, but he's making a good decision there and laying it down. Probably played it a little passively and cost him that pot, but at least he didn't compound his error by paying it off on the river for an extra 10,000.
Stay tuned. We'll be back with more poker action right after this. Welcome back to the FullTiltPoker.net Championship. We're at Wynn, Las Vegas here in Labette, the Beast. I'm Barry Tompkins, Howard Lederer alongside, and Chris Ferguson has joined us.
That's the 5th pot we've seen tonight, where Ted has been happy to just sort of go check with Cloney after the flop. That's the 5th time. This time it cost him a pot. There were a couple of hands where he was surprised that he won, but for some reason these two just aren't really kind of betting at each other. I really don't see it, but maybe they're, you know, sometimes with a player you kind of get into a groove where, you know, you checked the last time, so you're going to check this time. It's kind of odd. I would imagine that to change here as we get short-handed, though.
Minimum 2,400.
Very close hand here. 2-3 queen.
Everyone misses. The king high is good at the moment. We'll be updating those percentages. And Ted is betting and probably picking it up right here. A nice aggressive play, picking up the pot where everyone missed. These are the key pots, and they add up over the course of the night. 11,100 in that pot.
How are Ted Forrest playing methodically, playing high percentage poker?
Yeah, well, you know, when you're playing three-handed, picking up those pots where everyone misses, very important. I really think Ted's got to be the most comfortable of the three players left here. This is more familiar territory to him. I'm going to be very interested to see how the other two handle it.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. Right now, though, very competitive between these three. As you can see, the chips are still spread all around this table. It's anybody's guess right now.
Absolutely.
Cloney just made it 9,000 from the button, and it looks like Ted Forrest has a pair of kings in the big blind. So Cloney might be in a lot of trouble here.
Yep, and Ted may play this any which way. We know he's at least going to call. Looks like he's counting out. It could be a smallish raise, sort of a trappy raise. Yeah, this is a pretty small raise. So he's only re-raising 11. Now, very often, that means a very big hand, but I don't see how Cloney can lay down her queen-jack to just an $11,000 re-raise.
She would definitely lay it down to a bigger raise.
Yes. But I think he's going to price her in, and she's in big, big trouble if the flop comes a queen or a jack. Yep, she's calling. This could be a big pivotal pot in this tournament right now. Let's see what the flop comes. Looks like Cloney has dodged a bullet here. Unless Ted checks. He's pretty good at checking these and waiting for someone to catch up.
Yep, he let Gazes catch a queen, so let's see if he lets Cloney catch one. The reason he's not checking this is he's worried Cloney has an ace and does not want Cloney to pick up an ace.
Yes.
To lose the entire pot.
Right, but you know, if Ted had two aces, or if he had flopped a full house or had a 4 in his hand, that's the kind of situation where he's shown a penchant to slow play, but he's not going to slow play just with a pair of kings.
Cloney Gowan just choosing to cut her losses. 3 players left. We're coming back. Well, this tournament began with 23 of the very best poker players in the world sitting down to decide who was going to be at our final table. Out of those 23, 6 have emerged, and that's how the final table began. So we have 6 players, 4 men and 2 women, and we're now down to 3. 3 players remaining in the Full Tilt Poker.net Championship. This was earlier tonight. We lost John D'Agostino early. Phil Gordon went away on this sequence. And then the guy that was our chip leader, Daniel Negreanu, in a situation where he had to go all in and almost in his heart of hearts knew he was going to finish second. So they came in with the big stack.
Good luck. Yeah, that was a tough hand for Daniel there. And that got us down to the 3 we have remaining.
Well, here's where we stand right now. And Ted Forrest has stretched his lead over Cloney Gowan a little bit. He now leads by 47,000 chips. Christy Gazes is still there, still hanging around. So the money is still up for grabs. $250,000, remember, going to the winner.
Yeah, clearly this is anybody's ball game. Christy Gazes in last place at 104,000, but she's just one double up from taking the lead. She could cripple Cloney. She could knock Ted down to size to about 100. Anyone can win. Oh, Ted Forrest with another big hand. That's kings back-to-back for Ted. He had kings last hand. And it looks like Cloney's going to get involved.
Queen 4 doesn't seem like much of a hand, but when you're heads up and you have position on your opponent, it's a very reasonable call.
And this is just the flop that Ted didn't want to see. Of course, he still has much the best hand. And Cloney's going to represent the ace. But Ted senses something.
Well, you said it earlier. He hasn't made too many misreads all day.
No, and he's avoided some situations. and he's played some hands where a lot of people wouldn't play. He's calling here. It's a nice call with 2 kings. Again, this is not the card he wanted to see. He was kind of hoping that Cloney had a 10, and now, of course, if she had a 10, she made 3 10s. Now the heart comes in case she had a heart draw, but of course, we all know he has the best hand.
Checks.
Cloney bets here. I'm just guessing that Ted's gonna sniff out this bluff, but I could be wrong.
It's not a bad bet, but
14,000. But Ted's played this hand so slow that sometimes when you play a hand like 2 kings that slow, you just kind of, you're obligated to call here.
Well, he had to basically had to play the hand that way. Again, when he sees the ace, he
might be up against aces and almost dead, and then the 10 pairs.
If he's not up against aces, he may have a winning hand.
And he calls. He has not made a misstep tonight. Another well-played hand by Ted. Really, everything out there hit. I mean, Cloney either had to have, you know, absolutely nothing, or, I mean, everything else got there. So he played that hand very well. Made 14,000 on the end. Good call.
Well, that's a wrap for us. For Howard Lederer, Chris Ferguson, and Annie Duke, I'm Barry Tompkins saying so long from the Wynn Casino in Las Vegas. A reminder to join us next time for what should be an exciting conclusion to the FullTiltPoker.net Championship.
Goes to show you should never give up in a poker tournament. If you have chips and you're still seated at the tournament, you've got a chance to win, and Ted's showing that tonight.
The best in the world.
Ted has king deuce on the button. Looks like he's going to put in a raise.
I was lucky.
Huh? No, I have not.
He's had king deuce a couple of times tonight, and I think he hasn't missed a raise with it. He usually wins the blinds. Let's see what Cloney has. Ah, king jack suited is not going to be folding. She could be re-raising. No, looks like she's going to call.
Is that right there?
4 more hundred.
Oh, 4 more hundred.
48 total. All 3 players in 4,800.
And Christie calls the raise as well. 7-6 offsuit.
Deuce. Ted's actually flopped the best hand here with 2 deuces. Cloney has a gut shot. She needs an inside queen to make the nut straight. Christie has also a gut shot. She needs an inside 8 to make a 10 high straight. Ted has the best hand with 2 deuces. And Ted bets it with 2 deuces, and he picks up the pot. Another well-played hand by Ted. He sensed he had the best hand, and he ended the pot right there before either of them hit one of their many cards. Cloney could have hit a king, a queen, or a jack. Christie could have hit a 6, a 7, or an 8. He didn't give any of them a chance to hit their card. Well, we're looking at the chip stack of Ted Forrest, our leader, and we're really seeing a clinic on how you can build up a chip stack by winning the small pots.
Christie raises from the small blind with queen nine and picks up a pot. Ted really has been dominating the action here, getting involved in these hands, and he's picked up a couple big hands. We saw him pick up pocket kings twice. That's very unusual for a 3-handed play.
Back to back.
You know, for many of the top pros, Ted, who very often has concentrated on the cash games and the limit games in particular when he plays the cash games, his extraordinary success in the last year has been kind of like, I wonder what he's doing. Well, we're seeing it right here. He really basically hasn't made a mistake all night. It's been a very, very impressive performance so far.
Really, no limit hold'em is taking over as the game of choice for everyone, and Ted has had to make that adjustment, and he's making it very well.
He's showing what a great all-around player he is. This is a guy that's concentrated on limit games, limit cash games, and in particular the stud variety, Raz, which is low stud, 7-card stud high, low, and he's just decided he needs to turn himself into a no-limit hold'em player, and he's showing us that he's done it.
And Cloney call. This will be the last hand of this limit.
They have a three-handed pot here. And
Well, Christie's now flopped the bottom pair of deuces, and it looks like she's going to bet. But Cloney does have the best hand with middle pair, pair of fives.
16.
She's making a strong bet here. She can put a lot of pressure on Cloney, assuming Ted will fold. But it's up to Cloney. She has the best hand in a tough spot. These are those tough decisions, particularly a three-handed. Those middle pairs, you can't just wait around for top pair.
No, this is a very hard decision.
And she is in a very difficult position because it's 16,000 to her. If she's right and she calls, she's probably only going to win the 16,000. If she's wrong and she's up against the queen, she might lose her entire stack. It's a very tough spot, and that's where the position really came into play.
She threw.
They raced off. The lines have gone up, and the smallest chip on the table is now a $500 chip, and those are the purples you see. The ante's $500. That's why the hundreds are gone. We don't need them anymore. 1,500 and 3,000 are the blinds.
Oh, that's never happened.
Some more big hands. Queen 8 suited and ace 10 suited in a three-handed situation. These are pretty good hands.
12,000. Cloney makes it 12,000 to the small blind.
Why not? Why not?
Mix it up.
No. I know you're used to shoving it to him.
You know, it's hard enough to win the
pot.
pots. If they don't push them to you, that's a real problem. To make sure the chips went to the right stack.
Right now they're going to come in.
And the button is going to move. I believe Cloney now has the button.
To
You get the button every three hands. That's the good news. Of course, the bad news is you get the big blind every three hands. So these blinds are going around pretty fast. 15 and 3 blinds. And a $500 ante, that means they're putting in 5,000 each round every three hands. Gown opens with king, queen of diamonds on the button. It looks like she actually limped in. And gazes and Forrest both check. Small connected cards. Gazes has flopped a flush. Gown has flopped top pair. This could get ugly.
Or pretty, depending on your perspective.
This is one of those situations where you would think Cloney might raise here, not wanting to give Gazes a free shot at a flush, but she may sense something. 10,500 in the pot. It's up to Gazes.
20,000 bet.
She's bet 20,000.
There's another hard situation for Gowan.
Actually, there was 24.5 in the pot. She's now bet 20,000. We hadn't updated the pot size there from the last round. It's a really tough spot for Cloney. I don't see how she gets away from this hand without at least losing some more chips. She calls. Unless she hits a queen or a jack here, she's in big trouble.
River card.
Oh, wow. What a draw out. Gowan now has the top full house. She's betting 40,000, and this is really, really bad news for Christy. She knows that she's probably just been drawn out on. It's 40,000, and she lays it down. She played this hand beautifully. I know she's disappointed, but she really played the hand well. Nothing she could do about it. What a bad beat. She was up against one pair on the flop. It took runner. It took first the pair on the board and then the queen on the river for her to lose that pot.
She was a 30-1 favorite on the flop.
Wow, that's a pretty key hand. There was 60,000 in that pot.
Tough hand to lose for her.
It's always tough to gather yourself after losing a pot like that.
I'm getting closer and closer to my camera. Be careful, Ted.
Ted with another big hand. We've seen some super premium hands from Ted tonight. Kings back to back, now ace king. Cloney picks up a pretty good hand. She could get in trouble.
All right, I'm just going to
Nope,
muck
nothing.
him because I am
I
scared.
think I had a king.
I think that was so good. Oh, man.
Shows the ace king.
There's
We have seen that when Ted does show a hand, it's usually a good one. Ted is in there with gambling cards sometimes, and he wants to make sure that they see that he can have the real premium cards every once in a while also.
And he's been showing a lot of those.
Yeah. At this point, he'd have me pretty intimidated.
Throws the 10-4.
Cloney has the small blind. Ted folded the button. Gown with a big hand. King, queen, suited. That's 10,000. Christie ducks out of there with the 9-7. Probably still reeling from a couple of hands ago. Not looking to gamble. That might be the kind of hand where if Christie had won the last pot 2 hands ago, she might be calling with a hand like 9-7 in position.
I took mine in. I'll flip it again, but I'm pretty sure it was Ted.
Part of playing a marginal hand right now until she can gather herself again.
Dennis is on top of things.
Okay. There you go.
Morris with another good hand. He's going to win a walk here in the big
Kings
blind.
are running.
King 9 suited.
Oh, sorry.
Howard, we talked earlier about how Ted Forrest is kind of inching ahead of everybody else. That's exactly how he's doing it.
Yep, absolutely. He's winning a lot of the small pots like the one you just saw. You know, he's starting to get a pretty nice chip lead, particularly over Christy Gazes. She's down to about 70, 75,000. So even if she were to win or double up against Cloney, she's not going to take the lead. So she's got some work ahead of her here.
Ted Forrest right now twice the chip count of his other 2 competitors, but in a short-handed game like this, things can change and change very quickly.
Christie makes it 7,000 with the Jack-6 suited from the button, and is called by Cloney with the King-7 in the big blind.
Queen 9.
Check. This is one of those flops where no one flops anything.
You better take that
Christie's
one,
betting, and she earns herself a pot. 17,000 in the pot. Nice pot for Christie.
Make her forget about the hand she lost with flush.
Well, no, I don't think it. I think you never forget those hands, actually, Barry, but it'll make her feel a little better. Ted limping in on the button with ace-7 suited. Unorthodox play, but when you make the kind of decisions that Ted makes after the flop, you can't blame him. One misses. Looks like it went check, check. We got a 9 on the turn. Check, check, and now Ted has allowed Christie to get there. That's happened to Ted a couple of times, but again, he does play some unusual hands, and he plays some good hands in an unusual manner sometimes. But he makes so many great decisions, he can give up a small pot here.
Stretching a little bit.
You know, she's only Chanel, you know.
No,
Well, Ted Forrest showed that last hand. Maybe he is fallible.
Well, you know, he has a very unusual style. He actually has a nickname in the poker world called Professor Backwards. And, you know, that's because he kind of does like to play his hands backwards sometimes, trying to confuse his opponents, and it works well.
Let's go.
Looks like we have 3 lippers on this hand.
Queen 8-7.
8-7 is the draw.
Well, this is an interesting flop here. Ted has flopped an up and down straight draw. 9-6 with a 7-8. He needs a 5 or 10 to make a raise. Clooney's flop top pair. Ted has bet. He's probably going to be facing a raise here.
I want to raise.
And you are right once again, Howard.
Well, that didn't take a genius to figure that out. The question is, how much will the raise be, and can Ted call? Raise 15 more. That's a rather healthy raise into a $16,500 pot.
Ted could get in trouble here by re-raising. With an open and a straight draw, it's
very tempting to play very fast and maybe put some big pressure on her, but he just calls. He's trying to hit his 5 or his 10. It's a 10. This is probably going to get ugly for Clooney.
25,000.
And Ted has done this many times tonight. He makes his hand on the turn and then he leads out.
Clooney's all in.
I call.
Oh, not good.
She's going to need a 9 or she will be out of this tournament. That was a beautiful play there by Ted. That just call on the flop and hit his straight on the turn and lead out. Confused Clooney. She just couldn't put him on a hand that had her beat, and he had the straight. Of course, she needs a 9 or she'll be out and will be down to heads up.
One card left.
I didn't know he's going to be on a 9-6.
And it's a 3.
Well, that's it.
Ted with a dominant chip position. Well played by Ted. He hit the 10. He would not. He just confused Clooney with that bet. She couldn't put him on the 9-6. I don't blame her.
Bummer.
Tough hand. She finishes 3rd.
Oh well.
Yeah, she played fantastically well though this time.
Yes, she did. She played very well. Tough hand. Ted really has been holding the deck here.
Oh well.
Thumbs up.
It's me and the
Ted
best player in the
Forrest.
world. That's okay.
Actually, now we can play a little.
A little bit.
We have some time.
We got Well, you got what do you got? Me 4-1 or something, right?
Limits
At least. What do you got? Like 3.
I was just the big blind.
2 and 4,000.
Okay. Matt.
Matt.
The big blind.
Matt.
And if
He
you
was
look at
just
these
the
chip
big
stacks,
blind.
Ted has a very large
just the
chip
big blind.
advantage on
Yeah.
Christie Gazes. This will be
Okay,
a tough
so I'm
spot
small
for
blind on the
Christie, but
button.
it heads up. It just takes a couple of hands for
Annie's
Christie,
I'm
and
the
she can
big
be
blind,
back in the
right,
chip
Matt?
lead.
Annie's the same.
2 and 4.
2 and 4,000 with a $500 entry.
2 and 4,000. The blinds. A $500 ante.
Ted's first act, he's on the button.
He's got a 6 suited. Certainly going to probably come in for a raise, though. I don't think you'd make a lot of money trying to predict Ted's actions. He does make some unusual plays sometimes, but he does them at the right time. He has tremendous poker instinct.
Oh, sorry.
And so much of what you do in a poker tournament is based on the play of your opponents during that tournament. And what's unique about what you're seeing here today is that you're seeing every single hand that's being played. A lot of shows, they'll only show you the best hands, but here you see every hand, so you have to get a real feel of real tournament poker here.
Yeah, there's certainly no better situation on TV for really learning how these great players win these tournaments. You're seeing Ted do the little things that add up to big chips at the end of the night. Yes, you would have seen his big all-in pots where he's making straights and he's holding a pair of kings, but we've seen how many of the little things he's done well. He's won a lot of small pots. He's stayed out of danger in some situations where he could have gotten trapped. He's done a lot of little things that may have been edited out of an edited show.
Interesting hand here.
4,000 apiece. All flop queens down
Well, this is a
5
tough spot, and this tournament could end right here, possibly.
That's 4,000 Christie calls.
Oh, she's playing it slow, so maybe not.
Turn card is a 7.
10.
Yeah. She's in trouble. Ted may not raise her here, but I doubt if he's going to fold.
Ted has to be worried about a queen, as
Yeah,
she
he
is.
calls. But in heads-up play, second pair is not the kind of hand you're going to be folding.
Sorry.
No.
Used to the poker show.
Last card is a deuce.
Check.
Deuce. Ted still has the best hand. Check, check. Okay. Well, she still has chips. She really couldn't have lost much less than this on this hand. This is not. That was not a poorly played hand by Christie at all.
Play heads up a little bit longer.
Well, Clooney Gowan is with us now, and Clooney, I think everybody here certainly agrees you played very, very well today.
Well, thank you very much. I thought so. I feel bad about that last hand, but I feel good about it. I mean, you know, I feel like I played very well.
Well, Cloney, I don't think there's much you could have done about that last hand. I made a comment about maybe how confusing that lead-out bet by Ted was on the turn. It's kind of hard to put him on a 9-6.
Absolutely, it really was. I mean, I definitely didn't think that he was there, and I felt like he was betting second pair. I mean, we'd played a few pots together and stuff, and so I felt like he was probably going to mix it up a little bit with me there, and well, he did. He did mix it up quite a bit.
I think just at this final table, though, you played very well. You were down in the depths just starting the competition here tonight. All told, a very good evening for you. Very good tournament for you. I mean, you had to do a lot just to get here.
Oh, absolutely. I definitely did. I mean, I was playing with the best players in the world, and, you know, I got lucky on Johnny Tan, for sure. You know, so to even be here, I'm very happy with my third place finish today.
All right, Cloney, thank you very much, and a good paycheck for Cloney as well.
Yep.
Cloney Gowan finishing in third place here. 2 players left at the table.
Yep, so these players have locked up. It's about 130,000 for second, 250,000 to first, so they're essentially playing for 120,000, which is the difference between first and second. Not a bad position to be in. Each of these players bought in for 20,000 at the beginning of the day. They're all guaranteed at least a $100,000 profit, but we'll see who wins even more.
All in.
Well, here's your all-in call right here.
Ted's called.
Ted's called.
For Christie. King Jack for Ted.
This could be the last hand.
This could be the last hand. There's probably about a 40% chance, well, 37% chance that this tournament will be over. But if not, Ted has a very slim lead on Christie.
8,000.
Yeah, 70.
You called that very fast.
72.
But I really don't blame him. King Jack's a pretty solid hand for heads up.
Flop is a queen and a 9.
Ted needs a 10 or a king to end this match. He's going to have to hit a 10 or a king here in the last 2 cards.
7 on
it's
the
a 7. He needs a 10 or a king, or we will be in a real dogfight here.
Double up. The deuce.
It's a deuce.
How
much? Just like
Christie wins that pot. Just what we were talking about. She's 200,000. Ted down to 260.
77.
This is anyone's
77.5.
tournament.
Is that right? 70.
72.5, right?
No, 77.5, right?
65. That's 65 there. 72.5.
Oh, 65, yeah. We both did the same thing. Sorry.
So not quite the chip count that we thought.
So Ted still has a pretty solid lead, maybe about 260 to 200. Not sure if I trust those chip counts at the moment. Based on that, it looks like she might have more like 150, and Ted might have more like 300.
And I think that's what Matt Savage was saying.
She might have closer to 180. But it still has a pretty good lead, but obviously now the new situation is if Christie doubles up one more time, she will actually have a nice chip lead on Ted.
Christie wins that small pot.
But once again, all of Ted's good work tonight put him in that position where he was the one who could win last hand. He had a 37% chance to end it right here. And even when he loses that pot like he did, he's still the favorite to win from there. So he put himself in great position. And he's still in good position.
Seven against ace 4.
Yep. We're going to see a flop here.
Flop is Jack A3.
Jack A3 on the flop.
Everyone misses. These are the pots that Ted's been picking up today. But heads up, an ace high is not the kind of hand that folds that easily. And Ted having a king high will actually hurt him because he's actually thinking his king high is probably good, so he just turns it up, and Christie will win the pot with ace high.
With something weaker than king high, Ted may have actually bet the
He may have definitely bet, but in this situation with the heads up, I think Christie probably would have called him and probably would have won with ace highs. The fact that he had that king probably saved him.
So 3 hands in a row now.
Playing 3 and 6,000 blinds. The blinds are up $500 ante. So it is costing $10,000 every 2 hands for these players.
It's 20,000.
20,000 is bet, and Christie gave, and she wins the block.
Christie makes a 20 with 10-9, and Ted, even with a slightly better hand, he had the queen high, queen 8, lays it down. It's not a great hand to be playing with after the flop. I don't blame him.
And Ted's a player that loves to have position on his opponents.
Yes, and he likes to have a hand that has a little more of a future than Queen 8 offsuit. Christie with a big hand, ace jack. Ted has limped in with 7 deuce offsuit.
Big bully.
Well,
We'll be back with more of the FullTiltPoker.net Championship after this. We welcome you back to the FullTiltPoker.net Championship. We're at the Wynn Casino here in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Christie gazes, she's given herself a chance. Sometimes you just need to be there to catch your rush at the end of a tournament. She's still there. She's gathering some chips. She might win this thing.
Go ahead.
Now Christie limps in with 9-3. You are seeing a lot of unusual hands here, and this is what happens when you play heads up. You can't wait around for premium cards. It's kind of explaining why Ted called so quickly there with that king jack. You don't get hands like king jack every hand when you're playing heads up. Ted is bluffing with the 9 deuce. Christie flop bottom pair, and you can see she's not really even thinking about folding that hand. Heads up. When you flop a pair, it's not so easy to make someone fold anymore.
10.
Checking, and now she's going to protect her hand.
Which she doesn't have to do.
Little does she know that he has very little chance to get out of this pot.
You could have split it with a queen, basically.
Or a 9.
Or 9.
That's about 6 hands in a row now. Or
She
6
is,
out of 7, maybe.
Christie is on a roll. Christie Gazes has shown us that she's got a little game tonight.
6,000 apiece. Flop is queen, 5-3, 2 down.
Jesus has paired up.
Gazes has flopped a pair of 5s. Ted has flopped the flush draw and an overcard over the 5. This is a pot that will probably see some action. It's pretty close to 50-50. Ted has position though. It's always an advantage here.
Check, check.
Yeah, you see here he got the free card. He's going to lose the pot, but he didn't have to pay a bet on 4th Street.
First act on the bonus. 23,000.
Christie picking up a solid heads-up hand, ace high, on the button. And Ted's ducking out of the way with 10 high. It's a hand a lot of the pros would call with.
Now over 200,000.
So she's hanging in there.
Call 6, checks.
Okay, well, I guess we haven't seen Ted's cards.
Flop is 8-8.
Seeing a flop.
Christie check, Ted check. Turn cards. 6. Christie check.
So we'll be in the dark with you here.
Yep. And with Christie.
That's right.
And we don't know what Ted had, but he made it. I think just about everyone would have laid down that queen 8. So we still don't know whether he bluffed us or not. We kind of put ourselves in Christie's seat.
Well, he did turn over his hand, so we know he didn't have a big one.
We're going up.
Now the blinds look like they're up to 3 and 6,000.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Ted is not showing his cards to us now.
My cards?
So.
Okay, here he goes. I guess we'll get a look here. This is a pretty big flop for Gazes. She flops a straight draw and a flush draw, and she bets, and Ted folds.
There's 2. There's 1.
So we are putting in 14,000 every 2 hands. That's 7,000 a hand. And you can't wait very long when you're paying that kind of money per hand.
20,000.
You should see the action really pick up here.
20,000 a bet.
Try to get the answer because I
Yeah.
really starts again.
Ted was in good shape there. Club game. He had higher clubs than Christie, but Christie wisely laid it down.
Yes, and some of you at home may be wondering how we keep getting these hands out so quickly here in this heads up. We actually have 2 shufflers here on the set.
I'm all in.
Ted's all in.
Forrest is going all in.
Christie folds.
Ted makes a nice play there with ace high. Except the blinds. Looks like he's starting to nibble back into her stack.
And these players are playing pretty fast now.
So they're playing quickly, and we're getting a lot of hands in here. You look down at nothing. Folded.
Yeah, I guess you just see the mark right there. I guess you're showing them over here. I'm sorry.
Whoops. I hate when that happens. I've never had chips stacked that high, you have to understand.
We're going to have to wait for a confrontation here where they both pick up something.
Ted just raised with a 7-6 there.
There's that one in the
I think Christie just
No, I
folded
think Christie
queen four
folded
on
the button with queen 4, which actually, you know, that's the kind of hand at these antes and blinds I very well might have raised with.
Sorry, guys.
And Christie picks one up as Ted lays down
on the button.
7-4.
Yeah, 7-4.
The chips of Ted Forrest.
Christie limps in on the button with 6 deuce. Ted has 2 6s.
25 more.
And I think he's going to pick it up right here.
The strange thing is Christie just folded queen 4 on the last hand.
All right, now she limped in with queen deuce. That is an odd play.
Oh, yeah.
But I think
No,
she's
she just
feeling
limped in.
pressure
That's my
with
button.
the antes and blinds
You
going
are
up.
right. Sorry about that.
Now the big blind. It looks to me like she's down to maybe about 170,000. Ted is limping with 6-3 of hearts, and I think Christie is checked. You're going to see a flop here.
Flop is 10, 9,
Good flop for Ted, actually. He has a flush draw.
He's certainly going to bet.
Probably in the pot right here.
13,000.
Even though he was still a dog in the hand, an underdog in the hand, it was actually a very good flop for him because it allowed him to bet and pick that pot.
He was making what's called a semi-bluff, where if he gets called, he knows he's beat, but he has a decent chance to draw out against just about any hand except the full house. So it gives him the ability to bluff at the hand, knowing that he has 2 ways to win. He can either win it there with the bluff, or he can hit his card. In that case, would have been a heart.
10, 10, 6.
Wow, this is a big flop for Ted again. He's flopped another flush draw.
Now Christie takes a shot at this pot with only the 9 deuces. This is not a semi-bluff. This is a complete bluff.
It's a pure bluff. Yeah. She does not really have much of a chance to win this pot if she gets called. Ted is calling. It's flush draw. You can see Christie only has a 12% chance of hitting an offsuit 9 or deuce.
Turn card is a 10.
Another 10.
Now that's got to scare Ted.
Right, but he just fires away. Now all of a sudden here, if Christie has a 6, he's drawing dead with this flush draw, and now he leads up.
Facility here, new facility, and I have to say, not really out of the Las Vegas mold, to tell you the truth. I think it's really tastily done and terrific place.
Very nice property they have here. Steve Wynn has created many of them here in Las Vegas. Real pioneer.
Flop is 10, 8, 6, 2 hearts. Check. Turn card. 10.
Interesting. Both
well,
players
this is obviously a huge flop for Ted. He has the absolute nuts, 10s full of 8s, but Christie 6, and she's probably going to at least call here.
It's not the other way around. It's Christie.
Oh, Christie has the nuts. I'm sorry, I was misreading those cards. Christie has the nuts.
Strategy.
Ted has bet, and Christie has just called with the nuts.
That's a page out of Ted's book, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And that's a card that might cost her a little money there. It might be hard for him to call this bet. 40,000 she's betting. It's kind of hard for him to imagine that she has a hand where he's still got the best hand. She just called last card. You think about all the possible hands she could have called with. Jack 9, Queen Jack.
The heart draw got there, and if she has a straight draw, she got there too, because if she doesn't have the 7 to make a straight, she had the 9.
And also the 10-8 also has a beat. Basically, she'd literally have to have like ace little, where she was calling last card, just hoping the ace high was good, and now this 9 of hearts hits, and she decides to bluff it. That's the only hand he can beat.
I don't know why he's thinking. He must think she's weak for some reason. It's hard to imagine.
Yeah. 98,000.
This is a real misread. This is his first misstep of the tournament.
Full of 8s. 10's full of 8s.
Yeah, he must have just put her on that ace rag, and he just made his first real misstep here. And Christy Gazes now has the chip lead.
Yeah, the only way he can call there is because he misread her in some way.
Yeah.
She did something that made him think that she was very weak there.
Well, again, she played the hand in a very similar way to the way he's played a lot of his hands, where she just called and then she leads out. That's a very confusing play to an expert player. That's not a common play that you see very often. And I think she kind of used a little of his arsenal against him. And very often, a player that uses that play is susceptible to that play when other people do it. Christy has flopped the best hand again. Bottom pair. And again, she's probably not going to fold.
Ted takes a stab at it, but it doesn't work.
This hand's probably over.
Check,
She's going to check. She may check, but
she may check too, I think.
Unless he hits a jack, probably going to go check, check again, and she'll win it. Yeah. Christy's now won about two or three pots in a row here, and she's taken the lead. The antes are very high at this point.
You can see her heartbeat, and 105, 104. It's excited. Well, jumps to 117 just because we talked about it. I bet.
Ted limps in with the 7-6 on the button. Christy checks with Queen 9. See a flop.
Oh,
huge flop for Christy. She's flopped a straight, but Ted has a flush draw. So he does have a decent chance to win. She's just moved all in. Ted's going to have to fold. Another pot for Christy.
She's playing great confidence.
Well, you know, this is one of the ways that you win a poker tournament. You don't have to be on the lead the whole day. You kind of hang around. You don't go broke. And if you catch a rush at the end of it, these tournaments can be yours. I would say at least half of my tournament wins have been won this way. It's not like you just get a big chip stack and then you punish people the whole way. Sometimes you just hang around and you wait for your rush at the end of the tournament.
Uh-oh.
And this looks like we could be seeing the end of the tournament right now. Ted has a pair. Christy has a higher pair. She has Ted covered. And I'm expecting Ted to re-raise, and we will see an all-in here. But then again, I don't guess right with Ted very often.
That is a unique player. I would have bet money that he was moving in on that hand.
Unless it comes a lot of overcards here, I'm still expecting to see an all-in pot here.
I'm all in.
I call.
Yeah.
All
in. Ted's going to need to hit a 7 here in the last 2 cards. She even has a diamond to cover his diamonds. He can't hit 2 running diamonds. He has to hit exactly a 7. It's his only way to win.
7s versus 9s. Christy Gazes looking to win.
92% chance for Christy Gazes to end the tournament right here and win the FullTilt.net championship at Wynn Las Vegas. In 8, he needs a 7 or the tournament's over.
Christy will be the champion.
7 of clubs.
8 on the turn. 1 card left.
It's a deuce. Christy Gazes
About time.
has won the tournament. Great job, Christy Gazes.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Like you have to win a lot of events. She made good decisions early to preserve her chips and give herself a chance to win. This is a really, really well-played final table.
Oh, my God.
A lot of fun bringing this to you tonight.
Absolutely. Just terrific play. Terrific play really all around the table. Ted Forrest just had command, it seemed, of this tournament until maybe the last 20 minutes.
Exactly. One thing about Christy, you saw her chip count. She was the only one that had a very stable chip count throughout the entire tournament. She held onto her chips, she got heads up, and that's when she turned it on.
And they will now bring the check in, and she's going to love cashing that one. No question about it. Matt Savage is going to handle the ceremonies here with Ray Bitar, the CEO of FullTiltPoker.net. And here is Christy.
On behalf of FullTiltPoker.net, I'd like to present this first place check you.
To Christy Gazes. You played amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Great job, Christy.
Amazing Gazes. Christy Gazes is the winner. She wins 250.
I'd like to make one comment here. So far, just looking at the seating assignments, I think Daniel Granu pulled a bad seating draw. He has the second big stack sitting to his left. That could be a problem for him.
Looking at an ace-8 suited. Queen Jack for Forrest.
Well, Christy flops a flush, but Ted has flopped a higher flush draw, so he's going to call her $2,000 bet. Looks like $2,500 bet, excuse me. $9,200 in the pot.
King clubs.
Christy continues with a $9,000 bet. That's about a pot-sized bet. That might be enough to lose Ted. Yeah, Ted folds his hand wisely. This pot goes to Christy Gazes.
Very good pot for
Oh,
her.
don't do the wave. No.
18,200 in that pot. Before we go any further, let's talk a little bit, Howard, about this is our second hand. Remember, the chip count carries over from this morning's competition.
Sounds nice.
Yep, and as we said earlier, John D'Agostino on the short stack, definitely looking for his first playable hand to play aggressively. We feel Gordon on the button. He's going to lay it down. We're down to the blinds now. Christy with a 7-4 of hearts. He's going to limp in. John has not looked at his cards until just now.
Queen Jack.
Yeah, it's not a bad starting hand, and he's just in the blinds with, so he's actually got position from the big blind. This is not bad for the short stack.
I looked at him like 4 times already.
You check? I check. Okay.
All right, heads up now, the players in the flop. King for deuce.
Deuce 4 king on the flop.
Check.
Checked and allowed Christy to flop the best hand with a pair of fours. See what he does here. John checks it.
22.
Christy bets the best hand, kings and fours, and John has to get out of the way there.
First two hands to Christy Gazes.
Thank you.
Button here, John's in the small blind. Comes first stack. Opens the action with king, queen. Oh, she just called.
Call. Head up.
Heads up now.
Forrest and Gowan in the middle.
Ted was in the big blind and just checked.
Check, check.
Some tentative play here early. Ted senses of weakness. And he may be, wow. He's picked up this pot. This is an amazing call by Cloney. She has the best hand. She called 4,000 on the turn, and Ted continues to fire 6,000 more. 12,000 pot and picks
she
it up.
threw it away.
Very nice play by Ted there. He felt the weakness, even though she called. He felt like another bet. Maybe he felt like she made a 5 on the turn, and another bet would pick it up, and he was right. it in another blind so he can be a little bit patient. He has position. Cloney and Ted of the blinds.
Raise. 36.
Now we see here Phil decides to play the king-queen a little differently than Cloney. He is opening for a raise, and judging by the cards out against him, he's probably going to pick up the blinds here. Here shows how good solid aggression with a solid hand picks up the blinds and antes. You don't give your opponent a chance to bluff at you later if you miss.
Yes, I am. Thank you, Matt.
First position here is Phil Gordon, Daniel Negreanu.
12-3. All in.
Well, there's John D'Agostino.
Well, he's picked up kind of a middling hand here, but he's desperate to pick up some blinds. He's just hoping he doesn't get called, and it looks like he will pick up the blinds. Yeah.
And he'll take it, so he manages to get through to at least another hand. Didn't make a whole lot of money, but he lives to play another day.
Nobody go. We saw him on his first televised final table. This is his 4th televised final table. He's only 22. Obviously has a very bright future in this game, a tremendously talented player. Christie's limping in with a small pocket pair of sixes. This is probably the kind of hand D'Agostino might push with.
15-1.
Oh,
it is.
It's going to be a tough call for Christie with a small pair. But given his short stack, this is the kind of situation where a small pair may look you up, but he may be in a raise here. Well, Phil picked up a pair of 9s, so he's definitely calling the raise.
I was going to do that if you didn't.
Uh-oh.
But this isn't too bad with the king-queen to actually get in a race. He's not up against ace-king or ace-king or even an ace-jack. He's about a 50-50.
2 sixes?
That's very fair.
Very fair. It's very fair.
You had a 9?
Oh, well, that's fair, too.
That about makes it 50-50, right?
That's a good.
That hurts good, you know.
Yep, John, you're right. You're
It hurts
49%.
It hurts him way more.
Now the
Like
flop.
at least 5% more.
Yeah.
I'll bet you that. We could bet that for 20,000.
That's for sure.
I don't get
Low ball.
sir.
Oh, that looked like a paint, the first card.
Where's my 6?
Oh, very close.
Ace-jack 6, and there's the 6.
Yeah.
Christie would have flopped the set, and she might very well
I
make him
don't like
call
my
if
chances.
Phil hadn't
That flop
called.
actually hit me, too.
But John still had a pretty good chance to win this pot. A king, a queen, or a 10, and there's the 10. The hand is now over. John D'Agostino, ace high straight. He's going to win the hand and double up. His early strategy is working out. This is what he wanted to do. He needed the early double up.
Boy, and he got it. And I remember the last time we saw him, dating back a year to Turning Stone, back in upstate New York. Very similar a couple of times.
What are you going to do?
Yeah, well, you know, I mean, to win these poker tournaments, you are going to need to win a few of these 50-50s. He knew it going in. He was just happy to be in a 50-50 race with a hand like king-queen. He won the hand, and he's got over 30,000 in chips. He can actually play some poker now, as he said.
You do bust.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be the first out, too. No money.
Yeah, but this is the first time, I think, on TV we've had a no-money 6th place bubble position on TV. But actually, you know, the difference between 6th and 5th is the same as 5th and 4th. So there's something emotional about getting 0 back, but really
That's
not much difference. But you know, like moving up each spot isn't that big a deal until you get to 2nd and 1st.
Daniel Negreanu has been an observer for the most part, and still will.
Too late to make a play.
World record for him.
Daniel throwing away the queen 8. That's the kind of hand he may have looked to play. Ted playing very aggressively here early. He's already bluffed the pot from Cloney Gown. He just opened the pot with a king deuce. Not a very strong hand, but I think he feels that the other players may be playing tentatively here early. He's going to take. And we've got Christie and John in the blinds. Ted will be first to act. The button's on Phil Gordon. A couple of folds to Daniel. This is probably a spot where Daniel may open any 2 cards right now. No, he throws away as a 9-4. Gordon throwing away the jack-8 on the button. That's a little tight, but it was a good play. As you can see, D'Agostino would have probably re-raised from the big blind with ace-queen. Expecting a raise here and probably a win of the pot. from D'Agostino.
35 more.
3,500 more. As you said.
Pick it up. It's going well for D'Agostino here early. He's probably built his chips up to 35,000. Still may be the short stack, but in much better shape than he started.
No.
That's right.
No, that's right. That's right.
All right.
That's right. I wouldn't play
So
that.
they shuffle over there? That is super
Ted will now
cool.
be the big blind.
Small big guys.
Cloney will be first stack.
They're big, Ted.
Well, this is a pretty solid hand for D'Agostino.
Yeah.
He just limps in, though. Ted checks.
Six ace.
Check, check.
Check, check. On the 4th Street, this is one of these pots. You have to see who wants this pot.
3. Now let's see.
4,000.
Ted says that he wants the pot. You notice here, John has the best hand. I can't see how he can call. No.
Queen high?
And Ted
Queen
wants
high?
his second
That's pretty
pot in
sick.
about 1 round.
Another one from the ground. I
Ted
got it
really
right.
has
Queen
taken
high.
control of this table.
Started
And
to
he's
set
not
it.
the big.
Early, and he is the front runner. You can't win the race if you don't take the lead.
Yeah, you know, and I think one thing that can't be overemphasized, and that is that psychological advantage to being the chip leader at the table. The fact that whenever you play a pot, you cannot be the one that leaves that table at the end of the hand. That just gives you a tremendous sort of a relaxed state. You know that it can't be you that gets sent home, and you can just make kind of plays that you can't make when you're on a short stack. So his choices in a hand are much wider than John D'Agostino, who's on the short stack.
And D'Agostino wins this hand. Not a big one, but he'll take it. Thank you very much.
Excuse me, guys. 2 red-eye
That was
flights.
an editorial statement for Daniel Negredo, who's
Or
been
if
yawning quite a lot.
I don't know.
1 red-eye and 1 leg eye.
Well, we did start this tournament very early today, at least by poker standards, and some of these guys might be feeling it by now. Oh, D'Agostino with a big hand, 2 kings. We'll have to see if Gowan or Negredo wakes up with a hand. So far, it looks like he's going to steal. I'd like to make one comment here. So far, just looking at the seating assignments, I think Daniel Negredo pulled a bad seating draw. He has the second big stack sitting to his left. That could be a problem for him.
Looking at an ace-8 suited. Queen Jack for Forrest.
2 points.
Well, Christie flops a flush, but Ted has flopped a higher flush draw, so he's going to call her $2,000 bet. Looks like $2,500 bet, excuse me. 9,200 in the pot.
King clubs.
Christie continues with a $9,000 bet. That's about a pot-sized bet. That might be enough to lose Ted. Yeah, Ted folds his hand wisely. First pot goes to Christie.
Very good pot for
Oh,
her.
don't do the wave. No.
18,200 in that pot. Before we go any further, let's talk a little bit, Howard, about This is our second hand. Remember, the chip count carries over from this morning's competition.
Sounds nice.
Yep, and as we said earlier, John D'Agostino on the short stack, definitely looking for his first playable hand to play aggressively. We feel Gordon on the button. The 3 high, he's going to lay it down. We're down to the blinds now.
Cool.
Christie with a 7-4 of hearts. He's going to limp in. John has not looked at his cards until just now.
Queen Jack.
Yeah, it's not a bad starting hand, and he's just in the blinds with, so he's actually got position from the big blind. This is not bad for the short stack.
I looked at him like 4 times already.
Check. I check. Okay.
All right, heads up now, the player then call. Here comes the flop. King for deuce.
Deuce 4 king on the flop.
Check.
Checked and allowed Christie to flop the best hand with a pair of 4s. See what he does here. John checks it.
22.
Christie bets the best hand, kings and 4s, and John has to get out of the way there.
First 2 hands to Christie Gazes.
Thank you.
Button here, John's in the small blind. His first stack. Opens the action with king, queen. Oh, she just called.
Call. Head up.
Heads up now.
So Forrest and Gowan in this one.
Ted was in the big blind and just checked.
Check.
Some tentative play here early. Ted senses a weakness. And he may be, wow. He's picked up this pot. This is an amazing call by Cloney. She has the best hand. She called 4,000 on the turn, and Ted continues to fire 6,000 more. $12,000 pot and picks
she
it up.
threw it away.
Very nice play by Ted there. He felt the weakness, even though she called. He felt like another bet. Maybe he felt like she made a 5 on the turn, and another bet would pick it up, and he was right. Put in another blind so he can be a little bit patient. He has position. Cloney and Ted are the blinds.
Raise. 36.
Now we see here Phil decides to play the king-queen a little differently than Cloney. He is opening for a raise, and judging by the cards out against him, he's probably going to pick up the blinds here. Here shows how good solid aggression with a solid hand picks up the blinds and antes. You don't give your opponent a chance to bluff at you later if you miss.
Yes, I am. Thank you, Matt.
First position here is Phil Gordon, Daniel Negron.
12-3. All in.
Well, there's John D'Agostino.
Well, he's picked up kind of a middling hand here, but he's desperate to pick up some blinds. He's just hoping he doesn't get called, and it looks like he will pick up the blinds. Yeah.
And he'll take it, so he manages to get through to at least another hand. Didn't make a whole lot of money, but he lives to play another day. Nobody.
We saw him on his first televised final table. This is his 4th televised final table. He's only 22. Obviously a very bright future in this game, a tremendously talented player. Christie's limping in with small pocket pair of 6s. This is probably the kind of hand D'Agostino might push with.
15-1.
Oh, it is.
It's going to be a tough call for Christie with a small pair. But given his short stack, this is the kind of situation where a small pair may look you up, but he may be in a raise here. Well, Phil picked up a pair of 9s, so he's definitely calling the raise.
I was going to do that if you didn't.
But this isn't too bad with the king-queen to actually get in a race. He's not up against ace-king or ace-king or even an ace-jack. He's about a 50-50.
2 6s?
That's very fair.
Very fair. It's very fair.
You had a 9?
19.
Oh, well, that's fair too.
That about makes it 50-50, right?
That's a good.
That's good. You know.
Yep, John, you're
No,
right.
it
You're
hurts like
49%.
It hurts him way more.
Now the
Well,
flop.
at least 5% more.
Yeah.
I'll bet you that. You could bet that for 20,000.
That's for sure.
I don't
Low ball.
sir.
Oh, that looked like a paint, the first card.
Where's my 6?
Oh, very close.
Ace Jack 6, and there's the 6.
Yeah.
Christy would have
I
flopped
don't
a
like my
set, and she
chances.
might very well
I
have
don't like
called
my
if
chances.
Phil hadn't
That flop
called.
actually hit me too.
But John still has a pretty good chance to win this pot. A king, a queen, or a 10, and there's the 10. The hand is now over. John D'Agostino, ace high straight. He's going to win the hand and double up. His early strategy is working out. This is what he wanted to do. He needed the early double up.
Boy, and he got it. And I remember the last time we saw him, dating back a year to Princeton, back in upstate New York. Very similar a couple of times.
What are you going to do?
Yeah, well, you know, I mean, to win these poker tournaments, you are going to need to win a few of these 50-50s. He knew it going in. He was just happy to be in a 50-50 race with a hand like King Queen. He won the hand, and he's got over 30,000 in chips. He can actually play some poker now, as he said.
You don't, no, you do bust them.
And you don't want to be the first out, too. No money.
Yeah, but this is the first time, I think, on TV we've had a no money 6th place bubble position on TV. But actually, you know, the difference between 6th and 5th is the same as 5th and 4th. So there's something emotional about getting 0 back, but really,
He's hiding. That's not
it's not
fair.
much difference. But you know, like moving up each spot isn't that big a deal until you get to 2nd and 1st.
Daniel Negreanu has been an observer for the most part, and still will.
Too late to make a play.
World record for him.
Daniel throwing away the queen 8. That's the kind of hand he may have looked to play. Ted playing very aggressively here early. He's already bluffed the pot from cloning down. He just opened the pot with a king deuce. Not a very strong hand, but I think he feels that the other players may be playing tentatively here early. He's going to take. And we've got Christy and John in the blinds. Ted will be first to act. The button's on Phil Gordon. A couple of folds to Daniel. This is probably a spot where Daniel may open any 2 cards right now. No, he throws away as a 9-4. Gordon throwing away the Jack 8 on the button. That's a little tight, but it was a good play. As you can see, D'Agostino would have probably re-raised from the big blind with ace queen. Expecting a raid here and probably a win of the pot from D'Agostino.
35 more.
3,500 more.
Yeah.
As you said.
Pick it up. Things are going well for D'Agostino here early. He's probably built his chips up now to 35,000. Still may be the short stack, but in much better shape than he started.
No.
That's right.
No, that's right. That's right.
All right.
That's right. I wouldn't play
So
that.
they shuffle over there? That is super
Ted will now be the big blind.
Small and big guys.
Cloney will be first out.
They're big, Ted.
Well, this is a pretty solid hand for D'Agostino.
Yeah.
He just some in though. Ted checks.
Six ace.
Check, check.
Check, check. On the 4th Street, this is one of these pots. You have to see who wants this pot.
3. Now let's see.
4,000.
And Ted says that he wants the pot. You notice here, John has the best hand. I can't see how he can call. No.
Queen high?
And Ted
You
now
got queen
bluffs
high?
his second
That's pretty
pot in
sick.
about 1 round.
Another one for the ground. I
Ted
got
really
it.
has
Queen
taken
high.
control of this table.
Starting
And
to
he's
set
not
it.
the big
and he is the front runner. And you can't win the race if you don't take the lead.
Yeah, you know, and I think one thing that can't be overemphasized, and that is that psychological advantage, that being the chip leader at the table. The fact that whenever you play a pot, you cannot be the one that leaves that table at the end of the hand. That just gives you a tremendous sort of a relaxed state. You know that it can't be you that gets sent home, and you can just make kind of plays that you can't make when you're on a short stack. So his choices in a hand are much wider than John D'Agostino, who's on the short stack.
And D'Agostino wins this hand. Not a big one, but he'll take it. Thank you very much.
Excuse me, guys. 2 red-eye flights.
That was an editorial statement from Daniel Negredo, who's been yawning quite a lot.
I don't know.
1 red-eye and 1 late eye.
Well, we did start this tournament very early today, at least by poker standards, and some of these guys might be feeling it by now. Oh, D'Agostino with a big hand, 2 kings. We'll have to see if Gowan or Negredo wakes up with a hand. So far, it looks like he's going to steal the blinds. Yeah, Cloney had the 7-6. Well, that's one of those hands you're happy to take the blinds, but it would feel a lot sweeter if you won the blinds with something like 10-9 as opposed to 2 kings. You're always looking for action with a hand like king. Is a lot about timing, and you know that was just a case of bad timing there for John. He picked up the 2 kings. He happens to run into a chip leader that only has a 10-5 offsuit. Daniel's quite likely there to re-raise with a lot of very marginal hands, but he just didn't catch a break there with the 2 kings, and he's going to need some breaks to win this tournament.
We do have some of these people on heart monitors, and you can see his resting heart rate 72.
Oh, sorry,
Peak
I'm overlay.
199. He's right in the ballpark there, 122.
Yeah,
Not exactly relaxed.
Yeah, I think those kings got him a little excited there. If we check back in a couple of minutes, it'll probably be lower.
Re-raise. $6,600 straight.
Okay.
Cloney making a strong play here with Jack-10. Ted open the action. Jack-7. He re-raised.
Taking a long look at Cloney.
This is a very aggressive play. She obviously read Ted for having a weak hand opening in what we call the cutoff position, the position right next to the button. And she's sending a message to Ted that just because she's on the button doesn't mean that he can take her off the button by making a raise there. This is a very, very strong call by Ted. This is actually pretty shocking with the Jack-7.
Something's gonna fly in there.
Huh?
Something's gonna fly in there.
And a 16.
Fly or something. Oh, I do it.
Well, what is Ted's motivation here?
Well, you know, I mean, as I said, Cloney is kind of telling Ted, hey, you can't just raise and steal my button from me. But Ted's also saying, you can't re-raise me and just knock me out of a hand. I mean, you know, poker is all about the long run. And I think they're each sending each other a message that they're not going to be pushovers tonight. And, you know, and that's very important at the poker table.
Check.
Sometimes you don't make the exact right play there, but the message you send makes it right down the road. Check by Gowan. Given that she showed such strength before the flop, it's surprising that she's not continuing to bet here.
She's going to win the hand.
Well, she's going to win the hand if Ted doesn't bluff her out here.
True.
Nope, no, he has checked.
Check.
And she checks. I
Jack high.
believe
No!
she's assuming that she's going to lose this hand, but she's going to win with Jack-10 high. This is a pretty amazing hand.
Good, as Mike Mattisell would say. Y'all are playing some good poker over here.
Daniel's certainly getting his 2 cents in there. That was a very odd hand. Pot goes to Cloney, $16,200.
I had queen high. If I knew I had him
Don't think she expected it.
No, not at all. She pretty much, once Ted called that re-raise, she assumed he had a very strong hand, and she just wasn't going to invest anymore to try and steal this pot. This is like found money. She was assuming that she had given up that pot, and she's stacking up the chips.
The short stacks still hanging around here.
Raise.
Ted continuing to play
36.
very aggressively. Jack deuce he raises with.
I really don't know if I've ever folded this many hands in a row, like ever.
I'm not sure Negreanu's played a hand.
At least 10.
Yeah, I don't think he has voluntarily put a chip in the pot. He's certainly been in there in his blinds. But and here's Ted picking up the blinds with the Jack deuce. He is not slowing down, even though he lost that last one.
Well, all of a sudden, Ted 4 is starting to make a little bit
easier when you can see the whole cards, Barry. So, you know, this should be interesting.
Not you.
Oh.
interesting play. It's been the short stacks, really, that have been winning the money here early in this competition. Remember, the chip count carried over from this morning. We started with 23.
Yep, certainly John has already doubled up and then some. Ted, who was, I believe, in the 5th place position going in, certainly done some damage. And our chip leader hasn't even played a pot, playing very much the opposite of what we were expecting.
Second. 3,000.
Ted continuing his aggressive play, betting 2nd pair, which is the best hand right now. And this puts Christie in a tough spot. I mean, if Ted does have an ace, he can continue betting this on 4th Street and 5th Street. She's going to get out of the way. I think D'Agostino's going to throw it away. Another pot to Ted.
Yeah, he's playing very solid right now.
Down. The bottom stacks are moving up, and
so antsy to
it's
play.
really anyone's game right now.
Okay,
Gazes,
I'll play.
ace king suited, small pair Negreanu.
And Daniel opens up for a small raise. Gordon's going to call him with the ace-5 of clubs. We know that Christie's will be making a pretty large re-raise here on the button.
Don't give her a number. Don't say raise the pot. She might raise less. Let's, you know, be fair.
Back around to Daniels. I mean, a tough spot with a small pair like a pair of 6s. Usually you're either in like a 50-50 raise situation, like this situation against Christie, or you're a big underdog against a larger pair.
But do you get to that point where he really hasn't been able to play a hand? Now you got a small pair, you say, I'm just going to go for it.
I think he might be getting a little frustrated. Also, you know, there's a reasonable amount of play here after the flop. So if he were to flop a 6, and particularly if it came an ace or a king, he might have won a big pot there, but Daniel does throw his hand away. Gordon has a pretty easy laydown. Christie's going to win a nice pot.
I just felt like you were going to hit the flop.
You did?
Mm-hmm. I really did. I just felt like she's going to hit the flop.
Christie Gazes,
Or you
who
wouldn't
won
know
first
how
two
to play
pots
it.
here. Poker Phenomenon is a documentary.
And we did just have another example. Our 2 chip leaders moving down, and some of the stacks from below starting to build up again. These chip counts keep getting closer. Daniel limps in with king 10. Coming around to D'Agostino on the button with ace 10. Now he's probably going to at least call. And Ted sitting there with a small pair. He limps in himself. Ted limps from the small blind. We're going to have a multi-way pot, 4 ways.
This will be fun.
Yummy, yummy.
Daniel likes to see flops.
Ace deuce 7.
Wow. Well, Ted has flopped 3 7s. D'Agostino has top pair with a 10 kicker. And being on the short stack, he could be in big trouble here. And these, okay, these pot odds haven't updated. Second, they're showing the wrong odds. He bets 3,500. Ted just calls, playing his hand slow.
Now we're heads up. 3,500 feet on the slot. 3,7 feet. Turn card coming up. 6 of diamonds.
Well, this is an interesting card. This actually gives John D'Agostino some outs. He was actually drawing dead to make the best hand on 4th Street, but now he has a flush draw. Ted is not going to give him a free card. He's just bet 5,000. John's trying to add it all up. This is a rather confusing play. It's very hard to put Ted on a logical hand here.
Incidentally, those odds that you're watching account for all cards that have been played.
John has just called 5,000.
Didn't get it.
Didn't get his help. A lot of choices here for Ted. But probably a lead out. Correct play. Looks like he's betting about 7,000. That's going to be a very hard hand for John D'Agostino to get away from. Particularly with a player like Ted, who could have anything. If he calls here, this will be a big blow to his stack. He calls and he hates it. There it is for 7s. Yeah, that's a tough hand. He's probably back to about where he started the day. And when you're the short stack, you just can't afford bad luck.
And that was cost. Ted Forrest is the guy with the hot hand right at the moment. Has been.
Daniel in the blinds. Ted has the button. As he stacks up that last pot. That was a nice pot. I believe that was the largest pot of the evening so far.
Like that.
D'Agostino looks like he's still thinking about that.
Yeah, he's probably thinking about it. Could have gotten away from it, but I don't really see what he could have done differently that hand. Ted raises the button with the Jack-6. Another aggressive play. Daniel lays down.
Forrest was talking to us about being a counterpuncher. Well, he's anything but.
Well, I think what he was talking about there, Barry, is how, you know, most top players try not to have too much of a game plan when they go to a table. They're going to sit there and they're going to try and get a feel for the table. And I think Ted is sensing a lot of tentative play, and he's decided, as any good counterpuncher will do, he's decided this is a spot where he can be aggressive at least early and take advantage of some of this tentative play, and it's certainly working out for him. It certainly helps flop 3 7s every once in a while, though, also. We know D'Agostino is going to be opening here with ace-jack suited, and Daniel has ace-queen. Expecting a re-raise from Daniel. This may be a spot where D'Agostino is going to get it all in.
How much you got, sir?
We may see him racing here as a large underdog with a short stack.
Well, he dodged a bullet in a similar situation not long ago.
You didn't know, right? 3.
It's about 15.
Yeah. Okay. There's the 3. And
definitely nothing about D'Agostino's stack is going to scare Daniel.
9 more in.
Ace queen. If D'Agostino happens to have the ace queen B, it's not going to hurt Daniel, so he can raise here with no fear. And he's putting D'Agostino in a very tough spot.
I mean, this way you could still see a flop and get away from it if you miss. Right?
What a good guy.
That's so nice of you, Daniel.
What a friend's for.
I believe he raised 9,000, which is just about all of D'Agostino's chips.
By the way, Lori, if you're watching, I can't answer my phone because there's no cell phones allowed in the building. Just so you know. I'm not being rude or anything.
Well, there you are. You can't have cell phones when you're playing poker.
Yes, there are no communication devices allowed in Levette.
We are, I should
He wants
say,
to.
on a 5-minute delay, so that phone is going to ring for a long time.
Yes, and Daniel is someone who will very often have a cell phone with him at the table. I've seen him text messaging and stuff like that. He's kind of a multitasker at the table. But without his favorite cell phone with him at the table, he's going to have to focus in on the game here. John is in a tough spot, does not want to call. He can really sense that he's in bad shape here.
And remember, he made a call that he regretted just a while ago, so he may think about this even more.
This is just a tough spot. I don't really see how he can lay it down, but he may. And it would be a really, really good lay down if he could.
Guess I have one more fold.
Wow.
Wow.
Ace Jack, that
Very
was an
nice
awesome
laydown.
laydown, buddy.
Yep.
That was awesome.
Not sure
Daniel, you're right about that.
No, I got the queen.
Wow, that's probably a bad laydown.
I showed you the queen. What do you think?
Yeah, king, queen.
You know, Daniel's keeping it a mystery, though. I mean, John D'Agostino may be thinking he had a king, queen or something there. But actually, he has a little more than he started with. It looks like he might even have 25,000.
Okay. Oh, I like it.
Well, nobody looking like a powerhouse here.
Nope, actually, this is a ground skinner, and you love that when you're the big blind. You don't even have to look at your cards, and you get to pick up the ante.
She's quietly played pretty effectively, I think, Annie.
Yeah, she had. She picked up the first.
People that are really in the hunt to win this thing now.
You know, and Ted, you can see from those chip counts that Ted has been the most effective. He's moved himself up from 4th place to 2nd.
Small pair here.
It's opening up for a normal raise.
Looks like Daniel's thinking about doing something with that 8-5.
Yes, and we see Phil Gordon there with the ace-queen offsuit. This is probably a spot where we're going to see a re-raise.
This is the kind of hand that you see Daniel call with a lot that a lot of other pros would have just mucked. He likes those suited connectors.
Yes, and he likes to just call with them and see flops. Particularly with a big stack, you can't argue with that strategy.
He's going to raise.
Here's Phil. Looks like he's raising about 15,000.
Too rich for Gazes, too rich for D'Agostino.
Ted's laying down the small pair. I can't see Daniel calling either.
You're right.
And another nice pot for Phil Gordon here. And with that pot, he might be very close to the chip lead also now. Had a lot of good results in championship poker.
And he final table 2 no limit events at the World Series, so we can probably expect some good poker from him because he's in good form.
That's the World Series this year, so
yes.
he is in good form. Yes.
You're listening to the voices of our letterer, Annie Duke. I'm Barry Tompkins. We're at Wynn, Las Vegas. 6 players started, 6 players still there.
Phil has opened with a raise with 8-5 suited. Ted with his favorite hand so far, 2-7. He's going to call the flop.
3-4 king on the flop, 2 spades.
It's an interesting flop. Phil Gordon has flopped a flush draw. Ted still has those pair of 7s, and there's only 1 overcard. So
most likely to see Ted call here, which he does.
5-1.
16,000 in the pot.
Wow. Diamonds, how do you like that?
I think that might be Ted's favorite hand now.
And Ted is just going to lead out.
It's like he makes a small enough bet that Phil might be getting what he thinks is the right price here.
Right, and Phil has picked up a gut shot straight draw. If a 6 were to come, he would have the nut straight, 8 high straight, and he still has his flush draw.
So he has 12 cards to win, but we know Ted has the 7 of spades, so he has 11 cards to win. And he calls.
Not very happy that Ted has taken the lead away from him. Now he kind of knows he has to hit to win this pot. And he misses.
23,400, queen of clubs. So Forrest is sitting pretty.
15,000.
Ted's going to try and value bet here, but we know that Phil's going to have to fold. Unless he does something silly here and tries to get Ted to lay a hand down.
You know, I like Ted's bet on the turn here because he made a small enough bet that Phil really was forced to call. He had a draw, but he still wasn't getting the right mathematical price to call.
We are seeing Phil getting out some raising chips. We know that this would end in disaster. And I called it silly. I mean, of course, we know that it would be silly because there's no way that Ted is going to lay down the 3 sevens. But this actually is the kind of play that players will make. And it very often works here on the end, a nice raise on the end. We just know that if he does try it here, it's not going to work.
Taking a long look at it, though.
Well, he's trying to figure out what Ted could have where he would check call on the flop and then bet out on the turn in the river. He's trying to figure the hand out.
Well, from long.
And he figured it out and folded. Good for Phil. He avoided some huge disaster there.
Yeah, he had 50,000 coming back. So that would be 50,000 more in Ted's stack.
I would have to think.
Lost 50,000 extra chips there on a read where he was kind of right. I mean, Ted didn't have a big hand until he made the 3 sevens on 4th Street, but the fact that he didn't raise there, he's still in the turn with a nice stack. It's all folded around to Ted in the small blind. He's limped in with queen 6. 20's in the big blind with 10 8
So most
suited.
likely check here.
Deuce 4 jack on the flop.
No, neither player's
Check,
flopped
and I
anything. We'll
check.
have to see who's going to go after this pot.
Check.
Still nothing for either player. Check.
Check.
Check. Hand high.
Check. This is the second time these two have played a check down hand all the way to the river with a surprise winner, where
Pass it. Hearts. Pass it.
and the blinds just went up.
We're 13 points in some games.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, so we have one more hand at 6 and 1200, and John D'Agostino still on the short stack looking for any good 2 cards to go all in with at this point.
Should mention Matt Savage is our tournament director. That's the voice you're hearing
This is
in the
Daniel's
background.
favorite hand.
In fact, in the foreground.
Stand back.
Yeah.
Daniel's favorite hand.
Because I'm going to play with him.
You have beady eyes.
He does got beady little eyes. Not little.
And there he goes. He's calling the raise.
Big. You got beautiful eyes.
Ted's on the button, and he is opened, and Daniel has called the raise.
Remember the queen of spades?
Daniel
Queen
has
X spades?
flopped the best hand with
Queen
2
X
sevens.
spades.
Middle pair.
I check.
Is a 10.
He's made 2 pair.
Well,
Pretty
now we know
sure.
why it's his favorite hand.
9,000.
Pick up the pot.
Absolute favorite. Minimum I've ever made.
That must mean 2 pair.
Oh, Daniel
Minimum I've
Negreanu
ever
has
made.
not had a lot of hands to play, but
Right.
the hands he's played, he's won.
And he announces to the table that it was his favorite hand there.
And he's still 200.
And he showed us why.
Everyone knows information.
So we've just gone up to 8 and 1600, $200 ante.
Yeah, that's two pairs.
So the
We
blind
all know what he
going up,
has.
John is really going to have to get his chips in with anything better than an average hand at this point.
Yeah, but I believe he is the button right now,
touch
so he
my
does have
cards?
a couple of hands to wait
I'll
before
help
the
you
big
out,
one
buddy.
comes around.
Like you helped me out by exposing that queen.
12-9.
Whoop, John has moved in for 12-9 with the king-8 suited.
And he's got aces behind him from Ted Forrest.
Unbelievable.
Now that is unlucky. Well, we know he's going to be racing, and it's not going to be much of a race. He's going to really have to catch some cards here to survive. Or he will be our 6th
Now,
place
if
finisher.
Ted flat calls, we'll see what Daniel ends up doing with the ace-queen behind him.
If Ted just calls, which would be a pretty standard play here, because 12 over 12,000 is a large open, and just he's got D'Agostino already all in to his right, and this would be a standard isolation play where Daniel may want to raise Ted out to be able to play heads up against the all-in player.
And if he does, he's not going to like it here. Obviously, being
All
a
right,
huge dog to
I'm going to call. So.
Daniel's also calling.
I am not going to call.
Either going to have
I would say many pros probably would have re-raised and gotten into very
just me
big
and my
trouble
buddy?
here.
Now, Daniel needs to hope that a queen ace doesn't fall here.
baby blue.
Tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to check in the dark.
Daniel's checking dark.
I'm going to check in the dark.
Okay, without even looking at the flop, Daniel has checked
I
to
want a
Ted.
triple up dealer.
There is no money in the side pot at this point. Very unlikely to see any bluffing here.
That flop is good news for Daniel.
Ted makes a very, very crafty check.
That's,
oh my
that's
God.
disaster
like
for
that.
Daniel Negreanu right there.
What an amazing check that Forrest just made there on that flop, knowing there really wasn't any need to get Daniel out of the pot. Ted just calls with aces full.
Ted is actually playing this hand brilliantly to get the maximum out of Daniel here.
Oh my gosh.
6 on the river. That's brutal.
I think that Daniel is checking, thinking that Ted will
You're
bluff
not
here.
seriously thinking about sticking all in, are you?
I also think that Ted is
I saw this on
upset.
TV once
He's
where
pretty sure
he had the same hand as
that
the other guy, and then he
sorry,
stuck it
Daniel
all
is
in.
pretty sure that Ted
Yeah,
has
to
at
get
least an ace. There really wasn't much reason for Ted to call there, but Daniel's assuming that his kicker was good. So he's upset about that 6 falling on the river because that would give Ted a tie if he had a worse ace. But we know that Ted has aces full. We know also Ted doesn't think that Daniel would have to have the case ace here, the last ace in the deck, to be able to call Ted, but also Ted knows that Daniel could have the last 6, which beats Ted. So this is actually a tough spot for Ted to even bet, and he checks. An unbelievable hand here.
Really?
Whoa!
This is
What in the world
an
are you doing?
unbelievable escape by Daniel.
Yeah,
That was
that six
ridiculous.
saved
You
Daniel
had
a lot
me.
of money.
I'm serious. Oh my goodness.
And of course,
in the meantime,
John D'Agostino is kind of the afterthought here, and he finishes 6th place. He played very tough today on that short stack, lasted a while.
A really
Just couldn't get it going.
Went all in and finished 3rd in the hand.